Play.
Well, hello. Welcome to Talking Tennis. I hope everyone's been enjoying Miami. I hope everyone's enjoying Miami right now. We're currently into the quarterfinals. Would you believe? Only a couple more of the women's to go. The men's are underway today. Yeah, it's been an interesting tournament so far. Hello, Damien. Have you been enjoying Miami?
Hi. Actually, I mean, I've seen a lot of comments on Twitter saying that this has kind of dragged on and etc. I've seen plenty of opinions like that. Of course, that is really related to the topic of like 1.5 week masters, which Indian Wells and Miami, they've been like that for years. Of course, this year we're also going to have more of that in Madrid, Rome. But for me, honestly, I haven't really felt that, and which I think mostly boils down to the fact that there's 4 challengers every week, so I definitely don't feel like I have a shortage of tennis to watch or something like that. Quite the opposite, actually. Most of the time, I wake up, I turn on the TV, there's already tennis, and then I go to bed, and there's still a match that I could watch, but I choose to go to bed earlier because I have to wake up tomorrow or something like that. So I don't feel it, but I kind of understand why some people do, because, well, we're on Wednesday. Usually in tennis, this is a moment when you still have so much action, and we're, if you're only following the main tour, you've got 4 singles matches to watch. Also, if you're like European, you're probably gonna watch only 2. So yeah, I can understand why for some other people, especially the ones who don't follow the lower circuits, really, this tournament has been like dragged on a little bit. There's also like in the second week of Indian Wells, we had that huge Challenger 175 in Phoenix. So if someone tuned into that, then of course in Miami we don't really have an equivalent either. So yeah, I understand why people have some complaints about the system. In general, I'm not a big fan of the 1.5 week Masters idea. But yeah, for me, I haven't felt it. For me, it's just like any other week, really. So
yeah, I agree. I've with you. I've been enjoying what we've had. I think maybe I think what generally happens is we if you think about sort of 1.5 weeks is basically 2 weeks, and that's the length of a slam. We generally have a week after to recover. Maybe people feel like they've gorged themselves on tennis. I think also Miami's been a bit of an interesting tournament in that we've had a few more upsets. So maybe the quality or the sort of the recognizability of opponents, it's been harder to kind of choose and to watch. I think there's still been some interesting stories coming out of it though. But yeah, I've been enjoying, seeing whatever I can. It's been nice having tennis on in the evenings. My time. I mean, I don't know what time the tennis finished yesterday, but I gathered that it probably finished like as I was waking up, my time.
Yeah. Yeah, I actually never knew that because I went to bed with Eubanks Manarino being at like 2-1 and rain delay. And then I had to go to bed because I had some early classes at the university. And then when I woke up, I just checked the results, and I was just blissfully ignorant of the fact that it finished like an hour before I woke up. I had absolutely no idea. And then I just started reading some Twitter and reading the match, when the matches started. I think Medvedev Alice was potentially the last one, and it was at like 6 a.m. for me, which I just had no idea. I woke up at 9 and thought that all the tennis probably finished at like 4 or whatever.
Yeah, I think that rain delay really, really messed around with people. I think the only real match of like note was Pegula versus Potapova overnight, because that got dramatic. Pegula saving match points, Potapova testing her for like second consecutive tournament. But Pegula, I think it's good for Pegula that she's able to come through these kind of match wins. By the way, I see we've got some viewers already. So this is an interactive show. So feel free to comment. We'll show it on the screen. We'll talk tennis with you. It's not just about me and Damien. This is a community channel. And yeah, just send us your thoughts about Miami so far. Any questions about what we think is going to happen next, and maybe just send us your opinion and we'll comment on it. Maybe we'll start looking forward to it. And I think obviously everyone's kind of looking at the title. And I remember last time, Damien, you and I did a catch-up show. We completely ignored the title.
What was in the title back then? Because I have no idea.
I genuinely cannot remember. I think it was
Yeah.
meant to be what's going to happen in the Murray match or something along those lines. But Murray Draper, I can't remember fully. But the question that we may as well start with is Carlos Alcaraz and Elena Rybakina, are they going to win the Sunshine Double?
Well, they are certainly quite likely to at this moment, right? I mean, we'll see if Sabalenka loses to Kirstea, because that would help Rybakina's chances a lot. Rybakina is playing Potapova tomorrow. Pegula, of course. Pegula tomorrow, which, Jessie Pegula has been a player who, I think this year she still hasn't lost to someone who wasn't a Grand Slam champion. But generally when she plays the best, it's usually rough for her. And I don't know if I like her chances against Rybakina in Miami, especially, maybe in Indian Wells. Oh, actually both, I guess. Like the Miami courts a bit more. So maybe scratch that. But yeah, I mean, she's the underdog against Rybakina, clearly. And if Sabalenka was to go out, which right now, at the time of our conversation, she is a set down to Kirstea. I think she was also a set and a breakdown a second ago. She's not anymore. If that was to happen, then sure. I mean, then Rybakina would become like the pretty overwhelming favorite to take the title, I think, with Alexandrova, Kvitova, Kirstea, and Pegula, the remaining players in the event. She would definitely be like the main favorite if she isn't one already. Right now, it's probably like a battle between her and Sabalenka again. For the third time this year, basically, and in a huge event. And when it comes to Alcaraz, I guess it's a little tougher because we still have Medvedev, who seems like he should have like a highway to the final, which we'll see if it happens like that, but that's how it would seem at least. And Alcaraz has to play Fritz and Sinner, probably Sinner, of course, if he is to make the final even. So with Alcaraz, it's a little trickier, but still, if I was to just name one favorite, yeah, that's who I would go for.
Yeah, I would probably agree with pretty much most of what you said. I mean, going into this, I go before the tournament. I was the same as wrong comment. Matthew, in that I tipped Sabalenka to win the title. I figured that she'd reverse the results. I think Miami plays more like the AO. And I think I preferred the idea of everything kind of seesawing in that rivalry if they were to play each other in the final again. At the minute, Sabalenka is on a comeback. If she does lose to Castella, then or Castella, I'm not sure how you pronounce it. Then
it's with a K, I think. I've checked it like 20 minutes ago to make sure, but
okay,
because that's how I've been saying it. But there's anytime she plays, anytime she plays a big match, you just know that on Twitter there's gonna be a few angry comments about the pronunciation of her name, by the commentators. So I figured we're gonna talk about her. So I figured, even though I think I know, I should check.
We should go with the research. We'll go with the research, and it's Castella. If Castella pulls this off, then yes, I agree. Rybakina 100% will be the heavy favourite to come through and win this title, because I mean, like, Pegula could upset her. Like, Pegula could be I wouldn't be surprised if Pegula's being strong here, particularly as she's just saved match point and to come through. Sometimes that gives a player a boost. But then that would, I think that semi-final would end up being the title winner unless Kvitova was in amazing form. But yeah, I would agree that I was going to have Sabalenka reverse the result, and I also had Medvedev reversing the result against Alcaraz, but I'm a little less confident in that one, to be honest, because Alcaraz seems to be brilliant and may have something a bit extra over Medvedev. So I agree with you. If it's going to be either of them doing the Sunshine Double, I think Alcaraz is the more likely to it. Although Matthew and Ghost are hoping for a competitive Sinner versus Alcaraz match. in the semis. Which, let's face it, I'd be up for that.
I mean, I don't know if the Indian Wells match was ho hum. I mean, it was basically decided by this like 1 point in the first set tiebreak, but it was competitive. The first set was, and then the second was just Alcaraz getting an early break. But I wouldn't say it wasn't competitive. The first set was just basically until that one defensive get that Alcaraz had at 5-4, it was just a 50-50 all set. Didn't he like save a set point or something like this?
Yeah,
Am
Alcaraz
I?
saved that point.
Yeah, he saved the set point in the opener. So I don't remember if it was 4-5, 5-6, but something like
Yeah,
this.
I think it was five
So
six.
yeah, one of these games. So I'm not sure if I would say that it wasn't competitive, and I guess it will be competitive again because even though Sinner and Alcaraz, when they like play the whole tour, usually, I mean, Carlos is just a better player. At least so far in their careers, 100%. But when they face each other, you don't really see that. I mean, anytime they play, it seems like they just bring the best out of each other, and that they're just so even and just evenly matched time and time again. We've seen, of course, Sinner beat him in Wimbledon last year, also in what was it, Umag. And I think if they play, it's actually going to be quite competitive, provided Alcaraz beats Fritz, because that's also not an easy one. I saw a comment from Matthew earlier who said that Rune versus Fritz was like should have lit up the men's draw. And yeah, I fully agree with that. I was actually bummed because I couldn't watch that much. I had I had some other commitments and I just couldn't even see a ball from that unless it went like 3 hours or something like this. But yeah, when I saw the score, I was like, okay, I didn't miss that much. And I agree, this was one that should have really been a classic, but it wasn't. Alcaraz, Tommy Paul, I don't know. I don't think we should look at the Cincinnati match of theirs as something that is going to happen just every single time or something like that. I was definitely more hopeful for Holger playing Taylor that this was going to be huge, but yeah, it was not.
Yeah, I did watch. I did watch that match, and Rune was not playing that great. I don't think he was, but I also think, I mean, to be fair, actually, I would also say Taylor was playing pretty monstrously. So it definitely far more confident at the minute. So definitely deserved that win. We'll see if he can what he can bring against Alcaraz. Uh, and I think but I think the men's seeds seem to have mostly got through. The men's seeds that we were expecting to do well. Obviously, Tsitsipas we weren't expecting much from, but the men's seeds that we're kind of expecting to still be here: Alcaraz, Medvedev, Sinner. Those guys. The fact
These are the three, I guess, right?
yeah,
Because otherwise you'd kind of have to go for like Rublev, but of course Rublev played Sinner. Yeah, I mean Australia Sim, I don't think we were expecting him to go that far. So
I
Nego
had him
beating
in my
Tiafoe,
semis,
I was
so egg on my face, I guess.
yeah, I think it's more based on like faith than
I thought he had
than
a pretty
actually
decent draw.
right
I
now.
couldn't see many
Oh
people in
yeah,
that position challenging
the
him.
draw was good. That's true. I mean, I thought Tiafoe was probably gonna beat him, so I guess we're sort of on the same level as they went out in the same round and didn't even play each other. And yeah, I was surely surprised by Sonego beating Tiafoe.
Yeah.
That was one that I did not expect, even though Watanuki came close to beating Tiafoe, but. That one I actually thought was gonna give him trouble, but not really. That Sonego would do it, and so cleanly as well.
Yeah, I've never heard of Wantanuke before. I mean, just because I don't follow Challenger Tour enough, but
Yeah, he won a
um,
round at the Australian Open, so beat Rinderknech and played Korda, so you
yeah,
should know him. No,
there's a
no,
lot
I
of
know,
tennis players out there,
I
but
know,
yeah,
I know.
Wantanuke. Yeah, I didn't even see that match again. That was like when I was asleep,
Yeah,
so I
it was
woke up
very
to all this
late.
Tiafo drama, and I was like, "What on earth happened?"
Yeah, it was very late. That's true. I was just I knew I had to watch this one, so I just whatever the hour was going to be, I knew I was gonna watch it. But yeah, it was tough. I had to force myself, but it was worth it for sure. I think the guy is just an incredible post striker, really. Like he takes everything so early, and to do that with any sort of consistency, and I guess he doesn't always have it. I mean, he's just lost to Nathan Ponwith in Phoenix, and to whom in Indian Wells, I can't forget, I can't remember, but it was like also a pretty disappointing loss. And that's kind of all you really need to know. That style is Yunchik Shang. That style is never going to be consistent, but I think he's going to break the top 100 like super soon. Most of his career, he was just doing well in the weaker Asian challengers, but this year he has really transformed, just translated that form into stronger events, and that's been beautiful. Someone else in the comments was also talking about, of course, one of the biggest stories of the tournament, surprisingly, because it's also like a challenger player. And Christopher Eubanks has been like such a huge, probably one of the biggest storylines here, and not necessarily because of like what he plays. I don't think people are talking about that. People are mostly talking about the emotions after breaking the top 100. Jamie Foxx congratulating him, and Chris Eubanks has of course been a pundit for Tennis Channel as well. Probably has a career there after after he hangs up his racket in like 10 years or something like that. Just based on his age. So other than tennis, there's been so many people just telling us about what a great guy he is, also what a great commentator, pundit he is when he works for Tennis Channel. And yeah, it's like a feel good story, even though I think his game hasn't really like been the focus, which kind of makes sense. I mean, it is pretty boring. Like he serves well, of course, but from the baseline, it's usually not that great. But yeah, he seems to be a great person. Of course, living in Europe, I have never spoken to Chris Eubanks, have never been watched him live or anything, but he does seem like like just a standout guy, and fun that it was such a good story. Eubanks was a pretty good college player. Yeah, absolutely. He played for Georgia Tech like 3 years or something like that, and he's yet another one of these college guys who, after a few years, break the top 100. Probably not gonna be there, like probably not gonna be like a top 30 player, but yeah, with the points from Miami, he really has a huge chance of staying there at least for a year. It was actually kind of getting kind of scary for him, because he had such a strong patch at the end of last year. Definitely the best he's ever played. In more like he kind of introduced more net play, more slices, which with his one-hander, it's always been just such a liability, and he was trying to work his way around it, of course. And yeah, he just had a very strong patch at the end of 2022. Of course, these two consecutive finals that he lost to Shelton on the Challenger Tour, and it was like he put himself in a fantastic position to break the top 100 this year. But there were moments of when we were thinking whether he will actually do it, because especially the loss to, I want to say semi-retired, but probably more accurate is 90% retired Feliciano Lopez in Acapulco. There was a moment when he also lost in Indian Wells qualifying, and he had some points to defend there. And then he just qualifies for Miami with a very tough match against Lucas Klein and does this. And of course, there hasn't really been like a huge standout win in his run. Borna Coric is one, but Eubanks was down like what was it, 3-6-0-2, I think, when Coric just had a complete meltdown. I don't know if it was a heat, if it was the heat or whatever, or like a physical issue. No clue, but his level just fell off a cliff. But at this point, who cares? No, it doesn't really matter anymore. Now he gets a fantastic chance against Medvedev, and he should probably play like he's got nothing to lose. Of course, his chances don't look great. I think it's probably going to be more along the lines of that match that Medvedev just had with Alice, where he gets a player who's just based around that first serve and just completely dismantles it. But maybe, I know, we'll see. Maybe he's going to serve and volley like Alcaraz did in Indian Wells. I don't know. Of course, all the other aspects of his game aren't really Alcaraz like. But yeah, it's going to be certainly exciting to see him just face a guy like that. I'm not even sure, honestly, if Chris Eubanks has ever played like a top 10 player. I'll check that.
Yeah. I mean, I'm going to be honest. I've never watched Chris Eubanks play. I was seeing a lot of hype around him, possibly because of his tennis channel comments. I know that he does have a little bit of a following, a cult following on Twitter. Um,
Yeah.
and yeah, I think I will probably, if I can't, if it's in a time zone where I can watch it, I'm going to try, but they're probably going to make that the night match because he's American. Um, with but yeah, so I'm very pleased for him. I'm glad that he's had this big run. It's going to be career defining for him. I agree with you. I don't see him, from what I have seen on highlights, I don't think he's got enough to really challenge Medvedev. But he'll probably go out and play his heart out, um, and he'll do well. Whilst we're on the topic of kind of niche players, Ghost also put in this chat, what do you know about Bergs? I'm kind of ignorant of him, but I was impressed. Again, Bergs is someone who I know has a bit of a cult following on Twitter, particularly among Belgian fans, because I do have a couple on my feed. I have also never seen him play, but you will probably have seen him play, Mr. Challenger Man.
Yeah, I mean, of course, he had that big breakout in Antwerp. What was it, 2020 during the pandemic? He beat Ramos Vinolas and pushed Kachanov, which was like, yeah, the moment when most of us really heard of him, because before that he wasn't ever like really a challenger player. I think if he was if he was just healthy last year, he probably would have broken the top 100 already. But the problem is he wasn't. There was that moment in Metz when he led Basilashvili by a set in a break, and of course in a main tour event. And then he had to retire. I can't remember what the injury was. Maybe something with his back. But since he's been either struggling with something or then just sort of out of form. Certainly a guy who can definitely like break the top 100 at some point. There was a moment when he was considered an even stronger talent than that, like 2 years ago, let's say. Now probably the expectations are have just dialed down a little bit. He certainly has a fantastic forehand, also a great mentality. Very like a very smart guy. He puts a lot of effort into how into just how to prepare himself mentally for pro tennis, the sort of mindset that he should have. I've spoken to him a few times, and yeah, he just and also other than tennis, he like also does the something like studies at the university and etc. Like he just you can see that this guy is just very smart and knows what he's doing. um is he gonna break like the top 30 in the future? At some point that I probably would have said yes. Right now I'm not so sure. But yeah, I think eventually in a few years there's gonna be a year when we're gonna see him in the top 100. He played a pretty good match against Kokinakis, probably one of his best in recent months. Of course, missed a few match points, which is kind of funny because of course Kokinakis made a few match points and sorry, saved a few match points against Bergs and then wasted them against Hurkacz. And there is a bit of a cult following about Zizou Bergs. You're right. He is a model as well. He's had a contract with the with IMG for years, and that's why he also had a wild card here. And there is something that really brings out people, like even from other countries, to cheer for him at his matches. I actually asked him a question like this, and he says he said he notices it too, and that it's certainly like he understands it in France because of the name Zizou, which of course is after Zinedine Zidane, and that in France he can kind of get it, but he just noticed that in many other countries he steps out on the court and people just cheer for him. Last year, when I was in Poznan, he played a great match in the quarters. He actually lost it on his birthday to Tomas Barrios-Vera, and from the first games, there were some random people in the crowd who were just shouting, "Let's go Zizou, let's go!" And the match lasted over 3 hours, and they kept doing that. It was just one of these matches where you sit at them, and then for the next 30 minutes, your brain is just fried. You're still thinking about what you just saw. And this happens with him a lot. I have no clue what he has about him, but indeed, cult following is very, very right, and it's not really only in Belgium. But yeah, certainly a guy that I root for. He's super nice as well, and hopefully there's gonna be better times for him, because the past few months that they've been a little weaker. So yeah, a run like this, if he beat Kokinakis, that would have been very helpful. I don't know if he would have beaten Hurkacz, but certainly he kind of needs wins on the board right now.
Yeah, I think okay. Well, it's interesting. I'm really glad that we've got this opportunity to talk about these lower ranked opponents. I think we need to steer a little bit towards maybe an ongoing headline.
Yeah.
Because Sorana Castella is about to serve for the match against Aryna Sablenka, who I'm kind of glancing at it. I'm not paying that close attention because obviously I'm talking to you guys. But I don't think Sabalenka's playing well at the moment. Castella is playing well enough, and like she is a better player than people give her credit for. She is a former 1000 finalist in her career. You don't get that without being pretty solid, pretty good. So I wouldn't call this a major shock, but it does seem to be a little bit of a letdown for Sabalenka. And if she is about to lose this match, as we said, this opens everything up very much so for probably Elena Rybakina, unless Jessica Pegula's got something that can stop her.
Yeah, I totally agree that. I mean, Castella has been a very underrated player for years. And that's actually kind of due to the fact that she's never been one that gets just consistent deep runs at every event, but she's more about the random peaks, right? And one of them, of course, you mentioned, she was also a Slam quarter finalist, I think, Roland Garros a billion years ago, maybe 2011, but I would have to check. And yeah, in this Sunshine Double, she's already gotten so many huge wins. I mean, like a couple of them over Garcia. Then she beat, of course, here the two Czech resurgent players in Muchova and Vondroušová, which was also quite ecstatic. I haven't been watching this match, but I've just turned it on for the last. We'll see for the last few points. And by the way, also, I said that I was going to check that Eubanks has only played one top 10 player in his career, and it was Ruud at Indian Wells last year. So, 7-6, 6-2 for Ruud. So certainly a bit of uncharted territory for the American here playing Medvedev.
Okay, I'm going to throw a dark horse out there because we were saying obviously we're talking a little bit about like Ghost doesn't have much confidence in JPEG. I think JPEG could. It depends on how confident Rybakina is feeling and how confident JPEG's feeling. If JPEG's ready to bring it, she could do it. But someone who seems to be sort of making her way through the draw with fanfare from maybe her fans, but not necessarily many others, is Petra Kvitova, who's playing later on against Ekaterina Alexandrova in the other quarterfinals being played today, the last one to be played in this tournament. And I could see a scenario where Petra Kvitova could surprise people because she does have this habit of being unbeatable for one tournament a year. And, Miami would fit the kind of tournament that she plays well at. So I'm thinking, why not?
Yeah,
Other than Petra and she can flop, but
if Petra Kvitova goes into the quarterfinals at Indian Wells, then you kind of know that she's playing well, right? Because the Miami courts should suit her more. And I can totally see that. She's playing Alexandrova. She's like not a huge favorite for me, probably quite marginal, frankly. But that's not really because I don't believe in her. I mean, that's just the reality. In the past few years, she's more about one match here or there rather than or like you say, one tournament a year, which last year I think was one grass and also just a few good showings elsewhere. But yeah, of course, Kvitova's peak level is absolutely unbelievable, and it got her to number 2 in the world. It got her to 2 Wimbledon titles. It got her to an Australian Open final, which, as you said, the Australian Open courts aren't that much different from these. So, Kvitova definitely poses a lot of if Sablenka is to go out here, then Kvitova is like the player who can challenge Rybakina or Pegula in the final, probably.
Yeah, I would say so. Although, having said that, it's 15-40. Sabalenka's upped it, trying to swing freely a bit, and it's she's got an opportunity to get this batch to 5-all in the decider. which they're currently in a rally at the minute. But nice to see you, Ghost. Come back soon. And looks like we've got John in the chat as well, which is great to see. Yeah, so Caceres just saved the first of those break points. So we'll keep an eye on that. Yeah, but I'm kind of the same thing. And like, it really depends on sort of Kvitova and which Kvitova shows up. I actually think if she was playing Andreescu in the quarterfinals, very different story. I'd probably be banking Andreescu in this situation because she seems to like it in Miami and only seems to retire in matches at Miami.
Yeah, but we kind of have to remember that the retirement came when she was a set down, right?
She was a set down, but a breakup. So she was on the. I would have
still.
probably. Yeah, I would have.
We shouldn't automatically just put her into the quarters. I'm not saying you did that. But I've seen people do that. Like, Andreescu was winning the whole thing. I mean, let's maybe stop there for a while. I mean, she was a set down after all in this match. It's not like the injury, stopped her from beating Alexandrova 6-2, 6-2, right?
No. Oh yeah, absolutely. Like she could still have lost that match, but I think she probably would have won that match. I mean, I don't hold a lot of stock in Alexandrova, despite the fact she's a top 20 player.
And
but
she's just wild, right? I mean,
yeah.
But she's sort of like I don't know, all the other peaking players on the WTA tour with a huge peak but a low floor. And when she plays well, she can absolutely win this whole event as well. But you haven't really seen that where she just plays like that for 6 matches against top quality opposition, I guess. And there's a match point for Kirstea here.
It is a match point, yeah.
So
yeah, that's so okay. So it looks like it says save the situation. This is coming to you live, not from Miami because I'm in the UK and Damien's in Poland, but we've got some situation in Miami right now. So
I've already seen the point. So
oh, you've seen it.
I'm gonna let you see it. Yeah.
Yeah, unreturnable serve. Sablenka return long, and Castaia smiles at her team. She has beaten the in-form Aryna Sablenka, who probably wasn't herself today, 6-4, 6-4, and she's into the Miami semi-finals. So, yeah, that women's draw just opened up. My title favourites just crashed out. So, yeah, roll on. Let's see roll on Elena Rybakina. Let's see what happens. Although Miles, who you and I both know pretty well, and he's commented on Talking Tennis before, when he did his draw predictions, he picked Pegula. He's gone brave.
That's kind of like I said on Felix. I think he wants it to happen. Do I actually think it will? It could, but if Jessica Pegula is winning big titles, then still it's a little bit, the draw opening up or something. She still hasn't really showed us that she can beat like the other elite players in a huge match. I wouldn't really trust her against either Rybakina or Sabalenka. But of course, if she is going to beat Rybakina, then she becomes the favorite for the title now, given that Sabalenka is out. She has just lost to Kvitova in Indian Wells, but it was a very, very tight match. And of course, there's been a moment in this event as well where Pegula should have been out, realistically. So, but I certainly like Potapova should be a bigger story in this event, and she would in this Sunshine Double event probably would have been a Mari if not for 2 reasons. And one is, of course, her not pro-war, but very pro-Russian attitude. And the other is the fact that she didn't clinch either of these 2 matches against Pegula. But she looks absolutely supreme this year. And like compared to all the other power players, like shot makers on the WTA Tour, I think she also has some insane court coverage. And that's probably something that will sort of separate her from the pack. It was very visible in the match against Zheng, which honestly she played like a bit of a defender in that one, with how much the Chinese was, of course, controlling the points of her forehand. And Potapova looks like a player who will have an absolutely fantastic year. Of course, here she just didn't win either of these matches against Pegula, where both of them she basically almost had her here 2 match points. And what was it in the first one? Honestly, I've
I can't remember
forgotten.
what the first one was either. I
It
forgot
was
about
it
that.
was super close in the third match, in the third set as well.
Um,
I'll check
but
it
yeah,
and say.
I mean, like, let's face it, she's probably one of the what you would probably call next gen on the WTA tour. Probably
Well,
slightly
she
forgotten
lost
about.
5-7, but only led 3-1 in the third, so it
Okay,
wasn't as huge as here. What were you
yeah,
saying?
she's probably gonna. I think you could probably class her as part of the next gen on the WTA tour. Like, okay, she's not made as big a splash as well, there's some obvious names like Raducanu, Fernandez, Swiatek, Andreescu. But if I'm talking like players born in the 2000s, but she's up there. She's probably even made as big a splash as people like Jean Chinwen or Clara Towson, who are a year or younger than her. But I think, yeah, Potapova is a name that will probably be in the mix, top 10, 20, top 30 for a while. Maybe even top 10. Who knows?
Top 10 next year. I want to say this year, but it's a little risky, so I'm gonna say next year.
Next year, top 10.
And I'm
Okay.
gonna say the same for Kim Zheng.
Ju-
Towson, of course, has had her issues, injury wise. Even today, she retired in a 40K actually against who was it? Me too, I think, the Romanian, in a 40K in Slovakia or somewhere, or Slovenia, I think.
Mm.
So yeah,
Yeah.
she just keeps getting injured, but yeah, Zheng, Potapova, they look like absolute candidates to be superstars in the future. I don't know, a
Zhang,
year, two.
Zhang, I'm waiting for her big breakthrough because at the minute, I don't feel like she's made a much of a ripple beyond pushing Iga Swiatek at Roland Garros last year. Like,
Mhm.
all her results since have been at a sort of a very similar kind of headline level. She's not really pushed herself into the she's in the last four of a big event type player.
I mean, she
Yeah,
just
but
hasn't
that will
won the
come.
big matches, right? I mean,
That
she
will
she
come.
just hasn't really won a big match. Lost to Rybakina at Wimbledon, lost that final in with Samsonova, of course, in Tokyo, and yeah, she's just losing all the matches like here against Potapova. I thought that this was probably going to be her chance in Miami.
Mm,
Because, well, if she beats Potapova, she plays Pegula, whom I don't really consider, as strong a favorite as as players like Rybakina, Sablenka, Swiatek, even Krejcikova. So I figured that maybe if Zheng beats Potapova, then this is her breakout event, which yeah, honestly was it would have been a great chance for her, but of course Potapova won that one, and yeah, like should have won the quarters as well. So I guess it was a great chance for either, and neither fully capitalized on that. But still,
mhm.
of course, not playing Indian Wells because she was injured. Zheng will still welcome that fourth round, and Potapova will surely also welcome that quarterfinal, which I'm pretty sure is going to be like her best result in an event of this. In an event like that so far, right? I mean, she's won 2 WTA Tour titles, but I don't think she has made like a yeah, she hasn't really made a comparable result at a 1,000, at a 500 even, I think, or
Yeah.
at a Grand Slam, of course.
Yeah. But we'll see. Like, I think they're very likely to come. Matthew, we just discussed Kvitova. She's playing pretty well right now. But the question is how long for? I think I think that we're in an interesting situation with those two players. I think it's only a matter of time before they have a big result. The question is how much time do you give them? But I'm excited to see sort of what this sort of they bring, and like again, it's a sign of the WTA being a real kind of again that amazing depth of talent that they've got. I want to touch again on Andreescu because I was going to do that, and then obviously the Sablenka drama got in the way. I'm kind of gutted about that injury, regardless of whether she would have won or lost that match. I think it's probably wrecked the rest of her season. Like, if it's a similar injury to what Zverev had at Roland Garros, she's out for at least 6 months, which takes her out of all the 3 upcoming majors for the rest of the year. Her ranking's probably going to drop. which is a shame because she looked like she was starting to build back into the Bianca Andreescu that excites a lot of people. I mean, like, she's such a scrappy player. She's such a fighter. She makes every match a real battle, and that's very entertaining to watch, at least for me. You kind of got the sense that this might be her career based on 2019, because that year where she broke through and she won the US Open, she was winning 2 Masters titles, she was getting to finals, but she was either getting to finals or she was retiring injured.
Yeah, she was injured for like half the year and still won.
She was injured for half the year. And so really, like, I remember watching it and going, I can see this being a problem. She's either gonna fix her fitness and dominate, or she's gonna struggle, and it's been the latter very much over the last few years. So another really painful, quite literally, twist in her career, and I hope that she can recover from it.
Yeah, just to sort of expand on what you said, she went 48-7 in 2019, and that of course included the 3 huge titles. And when it comes to like not playing, she of course retired in Miami, then didn't play for 2 months until the French, where she withdrew from before her second round match, then didn't play at all until winning Toronto and the US Open, and then just played one more event after that. Another retirement at the end of the year as well. So out of the 7 losses, 2 were retirements, and yeah, she basically played one event between the end of March and the beginning of August. So yeah, she was either winning titles or just retiring, losing, and not playing. Matthew also says that he declares that this is the end of the big three talk on the WTA. I'm not so sure, honestly. It's still, I mean, Sablenka still has made the final and the quarters in Indian Wells in Miami. The clay season is coming, and of course that can sort of slow her down. I'm not saying she's poor on clay. Definitely not. She has, of course, done very well in Madrid as well before, but it could kind of slow her down. Stuttgart is a great event for her, right? If she chooses to play it, but yeah, I'm not. I just don't think that talk is done yet. I think these 3 especially have still shown some remarkable consistency so far, and will probably continue doing that, especially in the second half of the year, if their momentum, I'm talking of Rybakina and Sablenka, isn't too slowed down by what we're gonna see in the next 2-3 months.
Yeah.
Because I guess they're in very similar positions in the fact that they're not poor on clay, but it is their weakest surface by a mile. And of course, for Świątek, it's completely the other way around. She needs to perform in the next 2-3 months.
Yeah, a lot of pressure on Iga Świątek, definitely, because this is where the cornerstone of her number 1 ranking is, and this is her favorite surface. And I agree with your assessment. Like, I think the thing is, I think Sabalenka and Rybakina are probably not expecting an awful lot from clay, so they will be able to rebound and go on to the faster surfaces of grass and hard. Pretty confident after what's going on here in sort of the Sunshine Double in this sort of early hard court season. And I think that I don't think it's going to stall them too much, regardless of what happens. I agree with you. I think, like, we can't really stop it being stop the big 3 talk. It would be a bit like back in 2004, Rod saying Roger Federer wasn't gonna continue to dominate after losing to Rafa Nadal in Miami. He just carried on dominating. That's probably a really bad example. It was the closest thing I could think of off the top of my head, because at that time, a big 3 hadn't really materialized. And when it did, there was one really established part of it. I think
it's never gonna be like the big 3, right?
No.
But just more consistent than what we've usually had on the WTA tour.
If you're gonna go for a big number, if you're gonna say there's a big, I would actually say it's a big 4, because I would include Krejcikova.
Yeah, Krejcikova. I would too. Yeah.
She's only losing to Sabalenka right now, to be honest.
Yeah, results-wise, she doesn't really have the case. She doesn't really have a case. But I think it would have been very, very different if she didn't draw Sablenka in the 4th round in both, Indian Wells and Miami. Do we need a bigger sample size, as Matthew says? Yeah, I mean, sure. Of course, it's just 3 or 4 big events, and yeah, hopefully It should be more. Just at this point in time, they are sort of the four players who really stand out from the others. I think there are people who would like to include Pegula in there. I wouldn't. Yeah, as I said, I mean, she won Guadalajara, of course, which was quite a step forward in her career. But yeah, in most matches against these elite, the other elite players, she has been kind of struggling. So that's
I
why I wouldn't. But yeah,
I
I know
think if you're
people
going to
would.
make the kind of big four comparison of that
Hmm.
era, and again, I kind of agree on it's a bit too early to definitively say, but let's just go with the hype for now.
Yeah, why
Um,
not?
Pagula probably fits more into the category of someone like if we're talking 10 years ago ATP, a David Ferrer or a Thomas Berdych.
Yeah.
David Ferrer more maybe, like really consistent, very hard to beat by pretty much anyone else, and then struggles against the four. Um, and so until she wins a big tournament by beating one of them, that's gonna be that question mark of whether I wouldn't include her in that group until she does that. In which case, then you'd put her in the sort of Stampa Del Potro category of occasionally will upset someone, and is a pretty good level against everyone else. But yeah, that's kind of where I would put her right now. So maybe if she wins Miami by beating Rybakina, that might put her in that category. But
Yeah,
it's a big
like
if.
if she beats Rybakina, then let's say Kvitova in the final, that would be certainly like make her case stronger. Maybe just beating Rybakina even would make her case stronger because that would still be something that she has not done this year. As I said, I mean she's been only losing to Grand Slam champions. She has beaten like Krejcikova, but that's kind of all. I mean, of course, she's also beaten Świątek in at the United Cup, but there were a lot of circumstances around that match that deemed her victory, even if impressive, not as important. Gary says that he thinks that JPEG win might just happen here. I mean, of course, it's not an outlandish prediction to think that she might beat Rybakina, and given that Sabalenka has just went out, she would become the favorite at that point. So I just would probably trust Rybakina more against players like Alexandrova, Kvitova, Kirstea than I would Pegula, but still, it's certainly a possibility right now. The only real way like that I didn't think that she was gonna win this was because she was potentially going to face Rybakina and Sabalenka. Right now it's certainly open.
Yeah, and Rybakina might get tight. I mean, she kind of scrapped her way through a couple of matches before she got to the Trevisan match, which, let's
Yeah.
face it, she was gonna be the overwhelming favorite in that matchup. But she kind of, she had that battle with Badosa. I think, who did she beat in the match after that? It was straight sets, but
Well, Mertens.
Mertens, yeah, like that was a scrappy win despite it being straight sets.
But
I
she
could
also
see,
she also lost a set in the second round to Kalinskaya.
yeah. So she could, and like it maybe that sort of um that situation, like maybe she's getting a bit tight being the favorite. So I could see her going to that semi-final and getting tight, but then that's just that's a scenario I can see happening. That's not a scenario that I think will happen necessarily, because we also know Rybakina in the moment can have a fantastic mentality, which has gotten better over the years. Yeah, and they're noting that they are not doing that, but yeah. I mean, like, too early to sound Rune. He's still 18, 19. I wouldn't say that he's not going to be a top player for the next few years, definitively. But certainly, definitely too soon to dominate. I definitely know Rune said something along the lines of believing he's going to be a top player.
Rune definitely said anything. Basically, you can sort of just assign
Yeah.
into this category. Rune said that. But yeah, a few times on this channel before I've spoken about the fact that I think it's actually a strength of his, that sort of immense belief that he has. And of course, yeah, it's still early for him. It's still, he's 19 still, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
2003, and I think he turns 20 in like a couple of months. So yeah, let's not expect everyone to have the results of Carlos Alcaraz or Rafael Nadal at 19. But No, guys, I was talking about Ryba and Saba.
Oh yeah, sorry. Yeah, that wasn't that. That
No,
was
no,
it.
but that's Matthew suggested that that
Yeah,
important that Saba and Ryba don't jinx it by declaring
yeah, but
they're
they
not in a
haven't
big three.
actually said. They haven't said anything, and I don't
Oh,
think they'll be
and
happy.
Matthew is right that Rune said something like this that he, Sinner, and Alcaraz were like a new big three. But that's I think what most people think, right? That
Mm.
in the next I don't know, maybe not in the next, but in 5 years, let's say, we're gonna have something like this: Rune, Sinner, Alcaraz at the top. That's what we sort of have right now. That's what we sort of believe that will happen because, well, all the guys younger than them, they're still developing. We're not really sure whether they're gonna stick around at the top. These three, I think, are pretty safe bets. Maybe Rune, um, a slightly bigger question mark for now, but of course, everyone is expecting that in 5 years we're still gonna have Sinner and Alcaraz in the top 10. I mean, it would take injuries, and it would take just something ridiculous happening probably to keep them out. Alcaraz, of course, like even I would say maybe him not being like the top 5 in 5 years would take something ridiculous. Sinner still has something to prove. Rune has more, but that's the way it is, I suppose. But yeah, Rune has definitely said this that he's Sinner and Alcaraz. But I think a lot of tennis fans have said it too.
Yeah, I mean, Vance has gone on record of believing in farms. It's not even like the big three. Believing in farms, which is an acronym that can either grow or shrink very quickly. Um, I think actually, yeah. For those who don't know what farms is, it's Felix, Alcaraz, Rune, Musetti, and Sinner.
Yeah, I've told Vansh a few times that Musetti is kind of, kind of doesn't belong there. I also am not sure if Felix does, but it wouldn't be a great acronym if it was just just 3 letters,
Yeah.
and it was just what would it be then? ARS. That's like almost Albert Ramos Vinolas or like that. Maybe there's a Spanish player with the initials ARS. I've got a friend actually who calls Felix in a group chat. He calls him Pretender, which which
That's a
is a bit.
layered comment.
It is a bit of a stretch, but this year especially, and not indoors. I mean, his game has looked very vulnerable, mostly in that it's just not as complete as some of the other youngsters.
Yeah.
Even when he played someone like Lehechka in at the Australian Open, he was just made very, Lehechka made him just look very ordinary and exposed that backhand continuously. Here in Miami, he just had a total shocker against Cerundolo, but even against Alcaraz in Indian Wells, matches like against, I said other youngsters, so Medvedev doesn't count, but still other top players. The two matches he played against Medvedev, his whole actually rivalry with Medvedev, these 6 matches that he's lost, most of them, well, at least some of them not being competitive. It's kind of hard to see a Grand Slam winner in Felix Auger-Aliassime at the moment, but yeah, that's really all I wanted to
There
say.
is a scenario where it could happen. Um, like he's not afraid of Alcaraz. I don't think he's afraid of Medvedev. He just needs to find a way of cracking that rival, which he was 1 point away from
It's
doing.
impossible. It's impossible, I think. I know he was very close, but still, I just don't see him doing that, with the backhand that he has. It's just when he faces a player like Medvedev, Alcaraz, who's just can do it all, who doesn't have any weaknesses basically, and it's
Mm.
not in like perfect indoor conditions like it was in Basel, like it was in the other events that he won at the end of last year, where he can hide it more. I don't know. Matthew says we're all invested in Musetti because he plays one-handed backhand and therefore stylish. Yeah, I do agree with this. He certainly has some incredible hand skills. Theoretically, he should be doing more, but I think his game is just so hard to pull off. He has so many ways to win the points, but also nothing pretty clear. I think it's so much easier for a guy like even Felix, not looking far. He just has such a simpler, more easily understandable game. Even for him, that's good. Like he knows what he can rely on, And Musetti, he always sort of needs to come up with something, right? He needs to. He doesn't have this clear cut that clear cut option point winning engine, and I think over the course of his career, it has really been an issue for him. And of course, the fact that on most surfaces, his ground strokes are pretty easy to rush. So yeah, at this point, I'm also not really. Yeah, I don't really believe that Musetti is going to win slams either.
No, I don't think so either. I think he does have too many weaknesses in his game. I can see him going deep on a regular basis, but I think he'll run into trouble when he gets into the top players. He did play very well to win that. I think it was Hamburg against
Hamburg,
Alcaraz
yeah.
last year. I mean, I don't know how well Alcaraz was playing in that final, but Musetti was playing well enough to take advantage. And he obviously, I think a lot of people got high on him because he beat Stan Wawrinka in Rome a few years back. That was probably where a lot of the hype also came from, like very young. But yeah, he does have some limitations. Maybe the way you were describing him actually, maybe actually reminded me a little bit of how people might talk about Denis Shapovalov, someone who has a lot of options but doesn't know which one to use.
I mean, it's a completely different style, right? I mean, Shapovalov has just so many obvious weapons. He's just doesn't have any shot selection. I mean, Musetti has all the shot selection in the world, but yeah, it's just not so simple when you don't have that one huge shot or something like that. Musetti usually, I mean, he plays this sort of weird style where he, of course, sits 2 meters behind the court, tries to rally, and then sort of finds that backhand down the line opening or something like that, or just work something out with the slice, maybe even just all court tactics. It's a lot tougher, I think, for these sort of players to succeed. Just takes a very high level of understanding what you should do on the court. And I guess in that way they're similar, that they sort of don't know. Although for Shapovalov it should be easy, right?
Yeah.
If you have a game like Denis Shapovalov, you should be just brainlessly playing it, and he's playing it brainlessly, but he's not doing it brainlessly in that good way.
Maybe we should stop talking about Denis Shapovalov and talking about the other member of Farms, because we've talked about all the others, because the fifth member of Farms is about to get underway in Miami, Yannick Sinner. He's playing Emil Ruusuvuori for the third consecutive year in Miami. Ruusuvuori is one of those players who I remember being a lot of hype over, and he's not really lived up to it. Sinner obviously is someone who has rightly got a lot of hype to him, and I think his stock is going to be forever high because of that Alcaraz match last year, and also the way he's broken through. I think a lot of the reasons why he's not had more success than he's had is because of injury. But maybe I think he's got a very solid foundation to his game, and he's got a lot of weaponry when he's able to deploy it. So he's been looking very good these last few weeks. But yeah, what are your thoughts on Yannick Sinner? Is he running into trouble? And maybe also adding Emil Ruusuvuori as well.
Yeah, I know I might have to eat my own words when it comes to Sinner pretty quickly, because he was also one of the guys who I sort of maybe not didn't believe in, but had them maybe around Otar Aliassimish territory. But it seems like he's just one huge win, one huge event from just sort of breaking out from that and never returning to this sort of position again. I would welcome it, of course. As I said, I mean, against Alcaraz, he has a very good matchup for whatever reason. It's kind of hard to pinpoint that actually, but anytime they play, they are so evenly matched. This year, I mean, he's lost to Tsitsipas, Medvedev, Alcaraz, and Korda. And he's also doing the same as he was last year, which is winning in every single tournament he plays. He wins 2 matches at least. Of course, last year he eventually had a few where he didn't, but it was just literally a few. Let me quickly count it. I mean, Eastburn, he didn't win a match. That was when he didn't win a match. That was when he still didn't have any main draw ATP Tour wins on grass. And then he also won just one in Montreal, and also just lost in the first round at the end of the year in Paris to Wessler. So he basically had 3 tournaments when he didn't win 2 matches, which is just insane consistency. of course, a huge part of why he's just, well, still before this event, he was still outside the top 10. I think he's made it in by now. I haven't actually checked that. I mean,
Uh,
he is 10th right now, and Kachanov would have to make the final, I think, to keep him out, or maybe even win the title if it was a Kachanov Sinner final. So he's probably going to be in the top 10, which seems kind of low, 11th, 10th, with how many quarterfinals he's been reaching. But that's exactly the problem, right? It's been quarterfinal, quarterfinal, sometimes semi. Of course, he's won UMAG, he's won Montpellier this year, but these were 250s. And yeah, it just seems like he's on the verge of that breakthrough. He has beaten Fritz in Indian Wells, which was a very good win. And then lost to Alcaraz, which, as we said at the beginning of the show, it was very tight. So I do have to, yeah, I mean, I have to say that he's probably like one huge result from, yeah, just getting there in the fullest possible extent. The question is whether he will do it now, and yeah, let's see if he beats Rusevuori, and let's see if he beats Alcaraz or Fritz, because this is not an easy draw. Rusevuori, of course, is a player we would expect him to beat. He struggled with him in Miami last year, but as you said, physical issues have been a topic, a theme of Sinner's career, and that was also the case in the last Sunshine Double. He retired later on in that event. And yeah, I'm not really, I don't really think that Rusevori can do much to him today. I do think he will keep it fairly close, though. Not lose 6-2, 6-2. That's probably impossible, but yeah, just win 7, 8 games, something like something along these lines, probably. Would it be shocking if Rusevori beats Sinner? I don't know. I guess they do play kind of similar, right? Which people have been talking a lot about, and Rusevuori is also sort of waiting for that big breakthrough win, but of course it's a different scale.
yeah.
He's just constantly like troubling the top players, but never beating them.
Yeah, I think Yannick Sinner. I agree with everything you said. He is one big win away from breaking out from those question marks that I think both of us kind of have still. Yes, he's a Miami finalist. He's been 1 point away from a Grand Slam semi-final. He's won a 500, maybe another one. But yeah, it's that next level of winning a Masters that would probably, or getting to a Grand Slam final, actually making a semi-final, that would probably really cement him in where we think he is, in terms of confirming it. I think what you've described as someone who's regularly getting 2 to 3 wins, to me, that's a top 10 player. That is what you need to be top 10 base level. And I think he's going to solidify himself as a regular part, a solid part of the top 10. And the reason why he's so low down at the minute is because of his injury problems, pulling out of big tournaments quite early on, particularly Masters. Also, Roland Garros really hurt him. I think he always has the potential to go deep there. So for me, Yannick Sinner is kind of the typical top 10 player, and will be there for years to come. A little bit more on Rusevuori. What is it? Why do you think it is that he's not broken out in the way that maybe some people were expecting him to a couple of years ago?
Well, a couple of years ago, everyone thought that he was like the next Berdic, which
Which I'm not entirely sure. That's a clear ceiling there for Burdick.
I mean, it made sense. I think game-wise, it made sense. They have a pretty big serve, strike the ball cleanly from the baseline, play like a very power baseline-oriented style where you don't really move to the net. He should, though. Like this is something that he should definitely introduce into his game. And yeah, I did see it. He definitely was thought of as a guy who, when he breaks the top 100, he's probably gonna have more of an impact. Last year he started getting that, but yeah, he's just not getting the wins in pressure situations. I mean, I don't think he is going to have a career like Thomas Berdych. I think that's probably gone. But he on a good day he is probably like a top 225, top 30 player. And you kind of have to say at this point that most of these issues have been mental. I mean, last year, just briefly looking at what he's been doing, Last year, of course, he went to a fifth set with Auger-Aliassime in the opening round at the Australian Open. He didn't win that much. He had that final in Pune, which he lost to Joao Souza, which was just a complete shocker. Then I mentioned the Sunshine Double, where he had 3 match points against Sinner. Also didn't win that much. And these sort of losses just keep on coming from him. I could probably find more right now, but just glancing through it, even this year, he's already played 3 matches, I would say, against like elite opposition. And I mean Rublev at the Australian Open, which, okay, it wasn't really that close, but then Tsitsipas in Rotterdam, which a straight set win, but he was like 5-3 or something like that up in the first set, lost it 5-7. And then against Zverev in Indian Wells just now, which he also lost 7-5 in the third. He just keeps running these top players close, and he very rarely actually takes the win. His top 10 record right now is 2-11, but he hasn't, like, in the past 2 seasons. So from the beginning of the 2022 season, he actually hasn't beaten a top 10 player in 9 attempts. And at one point he's gonna get a win like that. Sinner wouldn't be a top 10 win, but it would be a top 10-esque, I think.
Yeah.
And it's as good an opportunity as ever for Suvari to break through that sort of barrier. But even against Van de Zandschulp in the 4th round, I think we were talking about Eubanks earlier. I think Eubanks will actually play his best against Medvedev, but if he was about to like win the match, I wouldn't really trust him to serve it out. And the same thing for Suvari. Even against Van de Zandschulp in the 4th round, you could really see the pressure getting to him. That 5th set, he was up 5-2, I think, then eventually won at 7-5 after saving a few breakpoints at 5-0. He hit some great shots to save them. Like I'm not taking that away from him, but yeah, in all these moments when he needs to be clutch, he hasn't really been delivering, and that's why I also don't really think that he's going to beat Sinner, because if he gets the chance to, I'm not sure he takes it, and that's really been the story of Emil Ruusuvuori's at least last year, because as you said, from that point when everyone expected him to be like a top 50 player in a second, which was probably like 2019, the beginning of 2020. Definitely in 2021 he kind of stagnated, but he has been making some progress the past year or so. Just not getting that huge win, which is sort of similar to Sinner, I guess. But yeah, of course it would give them different things. For Ruusuvuori, it would be more like just getting himself to maybe that's top 25-30 level, and for Sinner it would mean like actually challenging for the biggest titles. But Ruusuvuori has already secured a career high ranking, but it's like 37th, I think, after this week,
Right.
or 38th if Wessler wins Mexico City.
Okay. I'm enjoying this chat around these sort of future players. I think we could probably say that Farms, the R is for Rune and not Ruusuvuori. Actually, also Ruusuvuori was born before the year 2000. So this is something I've been doing some research on. So a little bit of it's like tease for a future episode of the Popcorn Tennis podcast, of which myself and former contributor Shuri are host. We're actually looking at an episode, planning on doing an episode where we look at the ATP Next Gen, which I'm going to define as born in 2000 or later. I'm currently just doing a little, and based on the rankings as they are right now, there are 40 players in the top 200 who are born in the year 2000 or later. And obviously, Damien, I think you're probably someone who's probably a bit more familiar with the lower down of that there's category, not necessarily like under 100, although you probably will have seen a lot of these players play, but even like outside the top 20, top 30.
No, I've seen all of them play.
Yeah. Is there anyone that you, even like they're currently 22, 23, not necessarily those, but like you can go younger to someone like who's coming through like Shang or Feast. Who are your kind of watch out for this guy moments, like watch out for this guy kind of tips for the 2000 and younger kind of coming through who haven't been in this elite group, who have broken out? So while you're thinking, one example I can think of that, you kind of went, watch out for this guy. I remember following you on Twitter was Lehechka, and he's starting to come into his own at the minute, and I'm fully expecting some more decent results from him. And like the Lehechka was born in 2001, he's the same age as Sinner, but he's making waves now. Compared to Sinner, who was starting to make waves a couple of years ago. So thanks for the like, by the way, Mark. So yeah, that's kind of the premise of the question. Is there anyone outside of the current hype that we should be watching coming through, even if it's younger?
Yeah, it's a question I always struggle with because in some cases it's super clear. Like when you saw Carlos Alcaraz at 16, you just had this incredible belief that this guy was going to win slams, and there was like nothing that could stop him. That was really the case. Like when I watched Carlos Alcaraz for the first time, which uh I mean, I wonder when that was. Probably when he played Sinner when he was 15. Actually, that was a challenger first round in Alicante or something like that in
Wow.
2019, which of course was a pretty incredible story because Alcaraz was already ever since in 2018 he reached an ITF final when he was just 14, beat Federico Gallo, who was probably like 200 something at that point. Oh, something. What's happening? Sorry. My stream just started giving me some sounds, and I was very confused. Anyway, when he played Sinner, that was probably when I first watched him. So maybe not yet when during the first match that I saw of Alcaraz, but let's say maybe the 2022 upset in Rio that he had over Ramos Vinolas. You just knew, like whoever watched this match just knew. I think the only people who don't believe in Carlos Alcaraz still, or like angered by the hype, are just the ones that haven't watched him when he was like 16. Because anyone I know who saw him back then was like, okay, this guy is gonna be the next, maybe not GOAT, because it's always so hard to tell whether someone is gonna win 5 slams or 15 of them, but you just had an unshakable belief in the guy. And I've actually kind of struggled with just separating because Alcaraz was super clear, as I said. But I've kind of struggled. I even had this comparison where I said that I find it hard to separate the Lehechkas from the Runes, which
Right.
I mean as Runes as the guys who like have Grand Slam winning potential, and the Lehechkas as guys who probably don't. But what it also like conveys is that I sort of, it was clear that both guys have top 50 potential, but it's just really hard to tell who is going to be at that sort of level and who is not going to be. I don't know, maybe just I'm honestly looking at the ranking list right now. You mentioned Arthur Fields. I think he could totally he totally has the game to potentially do that in the future, but I cannot really with full confidence say right now that this guy is going to win slams. In
Yeah,
terms of
so I'm not
Alcaraz,
necessarily, if this
mhm,
helps, I'm not necessarily talking winning slams,
yeah.
but someone who's going to be uh, in the mix, and we're going to be mentioning his name. He might get a couple of big wins at some point in his career. He might be solidly top 10 or break into the top 10 at some point. So it doesn't necessarily have to be pick your
Yeah,
slam champion.
I get it. I get it, and I totally understand. But like, yeah, just top 10. I think it's really hard to say in most cases.
Yeah.
Fields, I think, is someone who could potentially do it for sure. He has all the explosive qualities you would expect from a top player, but at the same time is very complete. Mentally, maybe he wasn't really that strong, but this year this has improved. He's actually like injured right now, so that's why he's not playing. But he should be back for Marrakesh or maybe Monte Carlo. He's 18 and almost in the top 100. Of course, that kind of tells you that he's gonna be insane. And potentially, I think this is someone who I can see in the top 10. I think Jack Draper has a great chance for a top 10 finish. I top 10 finish for yeah, just getting into top 10 at some point in the future. The guy now has a very well balanced game. Whereas in the beginning, when he was breaking through, it was more about the huge weapons and being a very inconsistent tall lefty. Right now, it's clear that he's just drifting into a very different play style. How well he moves. I think this is probably a top 10 player in the future. Of course, also some physical issues can kind of stop him from that. Yeah, just looking at some others lower down. Very very early to say about players like the guys that have just won junior slams, like I don't know, the Brewer Landaluce, who are 16, 17. It's basically impossible, I think.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not even making predictions on these sort of guys because I just don't know if that's even like I think it would just be straight up guessing. If I have like two wild cards, absolute wild card selections, which are both kind of risky, but I think these guys will at some point make the top 50, and like maybe even go higher. I could see them reaching the top 10. I would have to mention Hamad Medjedovic and Artur Kazo. Medjedovic is the guy who Djokovic is like paying for his expenses and covering the cost of his career. He was also coached by Stéphane Robert, who of course is like the former top 50 player from France, who was I think he still is a coach at the Djokovic Academy, although right now I think he's also taken up another gig with another youngster. Right now I think he's not working with Medjedovic anymore, but Djokovic has given him a lot of support, and the guy is a little crazy. Like, he's just constantly angry on the court, throws a lot of fits. But when it works, also when he's healthy, because that has been an issue as well, the easy power that he generates is just so ridiculous, and the ball striking talent is just breathtaking. And I think maybe it's going to take him a few years to sort of get over these mental, physical hurdles. But when he does, I totally see him being like a top 50 and more player in the future. Kazo, whom I just also mentioned, was a junior slam finalist at the Australian Open. And this has been a bit of a theme, I guess, but he's also been struggling physically a lot. I guess that's just the way it is for youngsters. Last year, he was only healthy for like, I don't know, a month or two, probably. There was a moment when he was trying to play through his injuries, and that wasn't really going all right with with the sort of well, his results, you could feel it, and you can feel that in them. And if he just stays fit, I fully believe that he is about to like maybe almost get into the top 100, maybe break the top 100 this year, and then theoretically has that top 10 potential. But I really struggle to tell in most cases, frankly. Like, usually it's kind of easy to tell. Even at like 18, 19, I think it's kind of easy to tell who has like top 50 potential. But when it comes to actually separating, Lehechka wasn't a great example in that comparison that I mentioned, but that's how I said it a year ago or something like that. Lehechka wasn't a great example because he might as well get into that top 10 himself. But maybe let's say it's just tough to separate the Rusev worries from the sinners, and that's gonna work better.
Yeah, that makes sense. And like, to be fair, I mean, like, let's face it, if you're top 50, you are a very, very good tennis player. And like, even I remember doing a load of research at one point of like, who do world number ones lose to? And typically it's very rare for a world number one or someone that high up to lose to someone outside the top 50. They're the ones who can occasionally bring that level to challenge, even on a bad day for a number one player. And that's on the men's and the women's tour. So I think top 50, top 50 potential is no, nothing to be ashamed of, and I can see why that'd be easy to identify. So sorry for putting you on the spot a bit there. Figured you probably more likely to see a lot of these players than I had. I've never watched Arthur Feast play. I've never watched Shang Yung Chung play, who is another player who is like, he's born in 2005. He's already broken top 200. So you're more likely to have seen these guys than I have. Luca Nardi, someone's the same age as Alcaraz and Rune, made a little bit of an impact. Some people were impressed by his power game, but he hasn't really done much since. But Lehechka is someone who took a couple of years to break into what we're assuming is going to be a good rise into the top 30, maybe even the top 20. Jack Draper, if he stays healthy, potentially on a similar trajectory. Where are you on the Ben Shelton hype?
I've seen a tweet in the past few days. I can actually probably quickly pull it up because I remember who wrote it. I'm not gonna shame this guy because there's been people who like criticized him for it. which I don't think is really justified because I think he meant well. And it was exactly Jesus. I thought this guy doesn't tweet this much. Or maybe oh no, I
Who is this
found it.
guy?
Um
Oh, never mind.
again, I don't know
Never
if
mind.
he would
Never mind.
welcome it. I don't know if he'd welcome it. So
Yeah.
I'm just gonna say what he said. Shelty hype train so far outpacing the results. He did well to take advantage of a soft draw at the Australian Open, but his only remotely good win is over Casper Ruud, which barely counts. And this is a tweet that got a few comments on it that maybe thought that the guy was talking out of his mind. I'm not sure. um I think Ben Shelton has some absolutely, of course, like he's just brilliant to watch, 100% with the energy he brings, but also with the game. The serve is always going to be a huge weapon. But I do agree that his results, and like maybe not necessarily his results, but just the Australian Open quarterfinal run, that's a little too much right now for what he can actually bring to the table. That run was great from him, of course, but yeah, it did not contain like a standout win. I think it's just not going to be tomorrow that he gets another one of these, and that's really all. And some matches like against the ones that he lost recently against guys like Manarino, Giron, these are the ones that sort of just expose how raw he is, how still all the things that we've been talking about, like shot selection, point construction, that isn't really there yet. He has like he's got like awful break stats for the year as well, compared to most players, where of course he's serve based, but still from the baseline theoretically he isn't as poor as, of course he isn't as poor as guys like, I don't know, Isner, Opelka and the likes, but his stats are more like Anderson, Raonic, where you would also feel that Shelton should be doing more of the ground. So there's still a lot to do. There's still a lot to work on. He is definitely quite raw. I just agree with the fact that the ranking that he has thanks to that Australian Open run and the sheer fact of being an Australian Open quarterfinalist, that's a little too much. But I wouldn't be shocked if as early as the North American hardcourt season, we're gonna see some good stuff from Ben Shelton. I mean that wouldn't be weird at all. But well, another, I guess, thing to mention is that right now we have no clue how he's gonna perform on clay. So there's probably going to be one more moment. In the next few months, the hype is also probably going to slow down a little bit.
Yeah, that was Cincinnati, John. Where he beat Ruud. Yeah, I agree. I think we're high, and it's very easy to do in tennis. We've seen it time and again on the men's and the women's tour, where a young player has a really big result, and then we get frustrated that they don't repeat it on a regular basis. The only young player that I've ever seen regularly repeat these kind of results is Carlos Alcaraz. Maybe even we were talking about Yannick Sinner, like he had a couple of really big results. He got to the quarterfinals of Roland Garros at 19, and then his development was slowly getting to the next achievement in his career. Shelton, I agree, his game is not fully developed yet, and we need to watch how that goes. But I would say there have been more players, having followed the game now for a few years, as we all have, that we've hyped and not lived up to it, than have lived up to it consistently. I'm thinking of, even if you go back 20 years, Richard Gasquet was hyped since he was 9. And he beat Roger Federer at Monte Carlo in 2005, and everyone thought he was going to be the next big thing. Did not materialize. The limitation in his game came through within a couple of years. It became obvious, and he just couldn't break beyond what did he get to, 7 career high? And he couldn't break beyond that. Grand Slam semi-finalist, a couple of 1000s, but he couldn't beat the big guys in the final. Or in later on. You look at maybe later on, Grigor Dimitrov, massively hyped, baby fed 10 years ago. And then he hit a ceiling. He clearly had a ceiling, and a lot of it was mental. And maybe a player who we'd spent a lot of time on tonight, Felix might fall into that category because he was massively hyped in 2019 when he came through as an 18-year-old and he got to the Rio final. We thought he was going to be the next big thing and his game was going to be amazing. His game is amazing, but we're seeing limitations. His backhand, again.
He was breaking all the age records just like Alcaraz, right? I mean, winning multiple challenger titles at like, what, 16, 17 or something like that, yeah.
Yeah, that it's actually, and even with the guys who were who have been making big splashes, how long did it take them to break through? Let's take the big four, ignore Nadal, because Nadal was just great out the gate. Federer took a lot of developing until he got to 21, 22 before he finally broke through. People were like, we know how good this guy could be, but he's not achieving that on a regular basis. Djokovic I think he broke through at 19 and then he started hitting ceilings for a bit until we saw what he could really do. Murray took a couple of years to really catch up to the rest of them, and even then obviously didn't beat them on a regular basis, or as regular as he would have liked.
For a while he kind of did, but
yeah, like he was the fourth man of the big four, but he deserved his place there. Like on his day he could beat any of them.
For a few years for sure.
Yeah, but like he was a year behind in development compared to Djokovic, even though they were born a week apart. I think partly due to the wrist injury he had in 2007 held him back a bit, development wise, and that had an impact on his later career. But yeah, I would say that like if you look at Federer, was definitely someone we're like, why isn't this guy, like, he beat Sampras? Why isn't this guy suddenly winning everything? And it takes him nearly a year to win a Masters 1000 and then doesn't repeat anything like that again for another year until he wins Wimbledon. I think when we're talking about hyping young players, the expectations that they already play like a top 10 player, like Sinner, who's getting 2 or 3 wins every tournament he plays in, isn't realistic. Sinner's only just got to this point. He got to that point last year when he turned 21. Before that, if you look at Jannik Sinner in 2020 and 2021, that wasn't the same. He wasn't achieving the same results on a regular basis. So that's kind of where I'm at with that. That's my soapbox.
Yeah, I mean, that's true. I'm pretty sure in like 2000, 2001, there were a lot of people who said, oh, this Federer guy, no, he's probably not going to be as good as people thought, right? And that's normal. I mean, we're going to see these guys sort of have different, trending downwards sometimes. And we're going to lose faith in them. Sometimes we're going to see them produce an insane result and we're suddenly going to be on the hype train. It's just a constant, up and down machine. It's really kind of hard for, and I think Federer is a very good example because he is like a relative late bloomer compared to the rest of the big three, right? Yep. Of course, it sounds crazy because in 1998, he was the junior number 1. He won Wimbledon, he won Orange Bowl. And yet it took 5 years for him to win the Wimbledon seniors title, so his first Grand Slam. Of course, it's not much, most players never do that. But compared to the rest of Big Three, yes, he was sort of a late bloomer. There were a couple of years when he had stuff to figure out. So yeah, I do agree with that. I think right now, if you told me that Ben Shelton was going to be, in a few years, he's going to win slams, I would say, I just cannot really tell you yes or no. It's simply impossible. It would simply be guessing. And in a lot of these cases, we are sort of guessing because, well, so many things can happen throughout the course of the career. Someone, the people you have around you, they are so important. Sort of injuries that you're going to get. Let's mention Dominic Thiem for the 100th time, where one injury can just almost end your, title winning days. That there's of course more instances like that. So the bottom line is you never really know unless it's Carlos Alcaraz.
Yeah. I mean, you even have the same thing on the women's tour. I mean, there is this I feel like there's a constant narrative around Coco Gauff, who has literally just turned 19. She is the world number 6, has clear limitations in her game as it currently stands with that forehand. But she is 19. And we're expecting her to be the complete package, and she's not. It's only, I was having a conversation with Miles about this, is that, she broke through at 15, and the main reason she broke through is that her fighting spirit. She just keeps going until she wins, if she can produce the level required. And against most players, it's enough. And it's just that extra step and those technical improvements that she's needing. But do we really expect a 19-year-old to do that, unless you're someone like a Carlos Alcaraz, or if you want to keep to the women's example of someone like maybe a Maria Sharapova or a Serena Williams, who did have a pretty good game very early on.
Pretty good,
yeah. Serena particularly. Like Serena won the US Open at 19, and took another few, but even then took another 3 years for her to win.
Sharapova beat Serena at Wimbledon, right? And then like never did
never
it
beat
again.
her again. Well, she beat her once. I think she got 2 levels up in the rivalry at the.
It was at the very beginning as well. Yes.
But yeah, Sharapova was the first thing I could think of, because like outside of Serena, she was beating everyone else. But like the only other comparable player of a more recent year would be Iga Swiatek, who won the French Open at 19. And even then, I would say that she was not the complete package when she won that French Open. And she only became more complete when she went like this time last year. And even then, there's still stuff that she would say needs to be worked on, aspects of her game. But she was someone who, she broke top 10, but no one was really sure what the next stage was, because she wasn't getting those next kind of results. So
Swiatek is actually a bit of a Alcaraz-like example, I would say, because
a lot of people were hyping her up. I remember hearing about the hype before I watched
at like every single age group, basically, right? Of course, Alcaraz never played that much ITF juniors. He was more good in the juniors, under 16s, and then was good enough for the pros already. But Swiatek was, so dominant on the junior circuit, and also she, like the first ITF event she ever played, she qualified and won it. Yeah, and it's of course Alcaraz didn't do that. He made the quarters, but it's kind of a similar thing where basically any age group, any sort of competition they entered from when they were 12, 13, whatever, they were just constantly winning. And I guess that just sort of gives people the unshakable belief that there's going to be something huge coming out of that. But there were definitely moments when people did not believe in Swiatek. There were certainly moments when no one could have predicted how dominant she was going to be. Let's say that. And she was going to become, hopefully for more years. Right now, it's kind of, we'll see how she does on the clay, but it looks possible that she's going to lose the number one ranking this year. But even if she does, like we said with some other players earlier, it's just basically impossible, it seems, for her to go out of the top 10 in the future or something, unless something wrong happens. And it's just very rare that we have this sort of certainty 100%. And even with Swiatek, there were certainly moments when when you could start having some doubts. You also said that she was not fully in 2020, that she wasn't fully ready when she won the French. Yeah, it was a weird event for sure to dominate a slam like that. Maybe not with any huge wins other than Halep, but still to just barely drop games. It was certainly quite weird, and not really going with any results that she had right before this, right? I mean, she lost to Arantxa Rus at Rome just a week or two before, right? So that was pretty insane.
Yeah, that win was almost impossible to predict. Yeah, unless you literally based it off Roland Garros the previous year of why not? But who would do that?
It wouldn't really be a good prediction if you picked Swiatek to win Roland Garros 2020. It would just be you just wanting to manifest that or something. Yeah, I mean, the girl had just lost to Arantxa Rus in Rome.
But then she played. I would argue Kenin was a big win in that final, because she was a recent Slam champion.
Yeah, sure.
Not as big as Halep. Halep was the overwhelming favorite for that French Open title, and was Swiatek not there, maybe she probably would have won that French Open title. But ifs, buts, and maybes. So I agree. That title, it was impossible to predict, and it was super impressive the way that she did it that first time. And then I do find that like no one was really sure what to make of her coming next. Like there wasn't there wasn't this people were just kind of saying, okay, let's see how she does next. Unlike
it was random enough where you didn't really know what was going to happen, right?
Yeah. Unlike Emma Raducanu, weirdly, where everyone was kind of like Indian, like after that US Open title, I think, particularly the British press were like wondering, like there was a little bit of a, oh, what's she going to do next type thing, and like let's play our best. But like even after that Indian Wells, people were expecting her to thrash people in 250s, and it just wasn't happening. So
that's on the British press, right?
That's on the British press, yeah. And the fans. But like Raducanu, I think maybe because she broke through so early on, everyone assumed, oh, if you're that good straight away, then she must go on to dominate. But that very rarely happens. Someone's just good on their first day on a main tour event. Again, we talked about Swiatek winning an ITF in her first attempt. Brenda Kvitova in there as well. Maybe someone who might have a similar path. Iga's injury, I think it's going to take, we're looking at a kind of a 4-week turnaround. She's missing Billie Jean King Cup. I think it is like 4 weeks. Sorry?
No Rybakina Świątek in Kazakhstan. That would have been a huge story, of course. But
those two just couldn't avoid each other.
Well, if they wanted now they can.
Yeah, just one of them needs to be injured for it to happen. Yeah. Like, I'm sure that the clay season will mix up the draws a little bit. Hopefully, I mean now Rybakina's top 10. They can't meet until at least the quarters now, for sure.
It's gonna take certainly, both of them making a very deep stage right now. I mean, Rybakina right now is at 7 following her semifinal, but if she would win the title, she would be at 6. Yeah, so it's still quite a while until she can get to the top 4. But of course, she's not defending Wimbledon, so
no, which would make a big difference. For those who are wondering, in the Sinner Savori match, is Sinner up a break?
He is.
Yeah, he's up a break, 4-3. So kind of going how we expected that one to go. I think we've talked a lot about we've talked a lot about the future and generations and stuff. We've not actually talked that much about Miami other than the sort of the women's draw. Touched on a little bit of Alcaraz. So let's keep talking about go back to the guys' draw in Miami. We've talked a little bit about, obviously, we think Alcaraz is probably more likely out of him and Rybakina to win the Sunshine Double. He's got Fritz, which is going to be bit of a battle.
Is he more likely? Like he's more likely in the sense that like he's more trustworthy, more reliable, but he also might have to play Fritz Sinner, right? So compared to Rybakina playing Pegula and then one of the 3 women staying in the event, I'm actually not sure if he's more likely, but okay.
Yeah. So I would say, I think at the minute of the men's quarterfinals we've got coming up. So Russell is on now, Sinner's in control of that. Rybakina, Alcaraz Fritz, we've said that's going to be an interesting battle, right? I mean, I'm going to have to sleep through that one because it's completely out of my time zone. And then we've got Cerundolo, Khachanov, and then Eubanks Medvedev. We talked a little bit about how we think Eubanks Medvedev is going to go. Eubanks is going to put up a good fight, but won't have enough against Medvedev. Cerundolo Khachanov, that's kind of the wild card one. Cerundolo, semi-finalist in Miami last year. No one thought he was going to go anywhere near that again. And then Khachanov, everyone forgets about him, and then he goes for a deep result. And then I know for me, like, I forget about him, and then he has a really deep run and go, oh yeah, he's here.
Yeah, and then he doesn't really, turn it into anything special, right? So that's also part of the reason. I guess we never really consider him a contender. I mean, he had lost his previous 23 matches against the top 10, right? So it's good that he's finally broken that. Of course, it was a little aided by Tsitsipas's injury, but still a fine achievement for Khachanov nonetheless. And that's certainly a pretty close quarterfinal. At least it should be if Cerundolo keeps up his Miami form. And as you said, no one was really expecting him to do it. With all due respect, that 2021 No, we're in 2023. So that 2021-22 run was very random. I mean, of course, he beat Tiafoe and Monfils, but he also got two retirements along the way from Opelka and Sinner. And, yeah, I never really figured that. And also the fact that Franz Cerundolo would actually have Miami as his favorite event is kind of surprising, especially as during the Golden Swing, he wasn't really playing well. But somehow it works. I mean, I don't really know. Of course, in any conditions, if his forehand is firing, he can succeed. But just kind of surprising that it is Miami that that he basically has done
I,
so well
I remember having a
2 years
decent
in
run
a
at,
row.
was it last year at Queen's Club on the grass? He had a decent run, and we kind of
Yeah, he won something, but I don't
yeah.
think he had a decent run. Yeah, he beat Pedro Martinez and lost to Ryan Peniston. No, not
Okay,
really.
no, I've got it mixed
Not
up.
really.
No, I've mixed
Uh,
up that. I remember
I mean,
watching him at Queen's.
Krajinovic was in the final, but I'm not sure if that's who you would mix him up with. I don't know.
No, I might be thinking of a different grass court event then. I remember watching him at Queen's, but I think I must have been watching him at Queen's losing to Ryan Peniston.
Yeah.
And I've forgotten
I
who it
mean,
was Ryan Peniston beat.
other than Miami, it was mostly clay, the semis in Hamburg, and of course the title in Bostadt. And
Sure,
yeah,
he's had a decent grass result at some point in his career, though.
I don't
Maybe I'm
think
making that
so.
up. Maybe
2021. No, I mean he played four events on grass in his career. In 2021, he lost in the final qualifying round at Wimbledon, and last year he won just that one match against Pedro Martinez in Queens.
okay. So
But
I'm thinking of someone else.
he did play quite well against Rafa at Wimbledon. So maybe that's what you're mixing it up with. I'm not sure,
I
but
don't know. I'm obviously to give someone else somewhere,
yeah,
but
the first two rounds for at Wimbledon were pretty hard for Nadal, and he played who Cerundolo and I want to say Berankis. Am I right in that? No,
in
I don't
21,
know. Yeah, 22. No, last one.
2022, yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
Cerundolo and Berankis. I'm right. And both of these matches he lost a set in, and especially against Cerundolo, there was a moment when the Argentinian was just unplayable with how he was hitting his forehand. But of course, that didn't last. So yeah, basically since Miami last year, it was only Hamburg and Bostadt where he had any memorable runs, and right now, yeah, he has somehow repeated that. Does it surprise me? He has this sort of peak level. We've seen it. Does it surprise me that it's happened in Miami for the second time in a row? Yeah, absolutely.
yeah. Well, good on him. He clearly likes it. There's some people who just like certain tournaments. It's very clear, and like sometimes it's just sometimes they just dig the vibe. So yeah, look, good on him. So I guess then if we were going to predict, are we saying that we're thinking it's? I mean, look, let's face it, the big quarterfinals could be Alcaraz versus Fritz. Alcaraz is the favorite. What percentage would you give him? Would you say it's 50-50, 60-40, 70-30, 100% Alcaraz is going to win it?
I would have to think about it, but it's like, I don't know, 70, 75-ish, maybe. Like, it's not 60. It's not 60. It's more than that. But it is, Fritz
70-30, that's
certainly
what
is
I'd go
enjoying
with.
that. I think 70-30 is pretty fair, yeah.
Oh yeah, it might be thinking Djokovic for Kina. Yeah. So we're expecting then the semis to be Alcaraz versus Sinner, and then Kachanov versus Medvedev, probably. So yeah, we're probably on another collision course, Alcaraz versus Medvedev final, which, yeah, I on paper you'd say Alcaraz. He seems to have a bit more to it. He's defending Miami champion. On the other hand, Medvedev might be far more comfortable in these conditions and put up way more of a fight than he did in Indian Wells. So that one's I'm finding I don't want to definitively plant my flag on the Alcaraz court if that was to happen.
It is a bit of a concern as well, I guess, and maybe in some ways actually it's good for Medvedev because, of course, since Valentine's Day, so when his huge run started, he has played so much tennis. But at the same time, he's gonna go like there is a possibility for him to go into the final pretty undercooked here.
Yeah,
it's there. Whether it will actually happen, we'll see. That depends if Eubanks and then Cerundolo or Kachanov will give him any trouble. But right now, looking at how much of a favorite he is against either of these guys, there's certainly a chance that Medvedev just goes into the final not losing a set, dropping like 15, 20 games. So far, of course, in 2 matches, he has just lost 9. Is that actually helpful for him? I don't know, because, well, usually you wouldn't say that. Like, usually you'd like some small test at least along the way. But of course, yeah, as I said, he's played so much tennis, so maybe it's actually for the better. But yeah, in Miami, it's certainly going to be easier for him to have a chance against Alcaraz. Whereas in Indian Wells, we all saw what happened, and well, it was a demolition, the kind you don't really see in a final usually.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So I definitely don't think we'll see that again. I think Medvedev's too good for that.
Yeah,
Even if he's going to be undercooked. I mean, there's also the possibility that Yannick Sinner beats, as he's got set
absolutely.
point. As Yannick Sinner beats them both. Or Fritz beats Alcaraz, Sinner beats Fritz, and then beats Medvedev. And that would be the moment we've been talking about for Sinner, which would be significant. So Sinner's very much the third favorite in there, in that sort of mix of like, and I could see a scenario where he goes, "Don't forget about me, don't you forget about me." I'm clearly getting delirious.
Wow.
So you never know. As Sinner wins the first set 6-3. I do apologize. I'm not a good singer. So a lot of
You can carry a tune clearly.
there's a lot of Alejandro Davidovich Fokina love in the chat at the minute.
Yes, Jane is a big
Jane.
Davidovich Fokina fan, as you
A
can see.
lot of people who love Alejandro Davidovich Fokina, not least because of his like the fact he'll dive on any court, but also the fact that he clearly loves dogs, and that seems to win a lot of people over. So someone who is probably going to be like top 30 for a while, but I don't see him doing a lot beyond that.
Quite the character, that's for sure.
Yeah. Clearly, I'm a character because I'm the subject of the next 2 comments. I think John's just happy I'm singing 80s tunes. Probably reminds him of his. Yes, Jane, I have recovered from the cough. Yes, that was not fun to commentate with, but I mean, let's face it, 80s tunes are the best. I remember when I was at university, which is coming up for 10 years ago now. And I remember being part of this is not to do with tennis, it's just a random anecdote. Part of the debate society, and someone did a poll in the debate society Facebook group of what's the best decade for music.
Mm-hmm.
And of a population of what was about 20 to 30 20 somethings or teenagers, 80s music won by quite some margin. Now, I don't know whether it's the specific music taste of the kind of people who would go to a debate society, but I always found that result somewhat interesting, that my generation were kind of like, yeah, our current generation of music sucks, we'd rather listen to the 80s.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely love the 80s aesthetic. I don't know if that's what I mostly listen to. Probably not. But certainly I do. I am an 80s enjoyer. Of course, Don't You Forget About Me was also featured in The Breakfast Club. I think maybe even written for it, if I remember correctly.
Great
Which
movie.
definitely immortalized that song a bit, for sure.
Okay.
John says best decade 60s, but maybe we should talk about tennis.
We should go back. Okay, right. So, okay, let's loose tennis question here. Like, I remember having this hearing discussion on a different podcast a few years back. If let's say that tennis players could choose their own walk-on songs onto court, if let's say you're a professional tennis player, what's your walk-on song?
I was actually thinking about something similar a couple of days ago, but not what I would choose, but whether it would be possible for like tennis to have this, because I'm going in July there's going to be a darts event in Poland for the very first time, like of the
Okay.
highest level, and I'm certainly buying tickets with a friend of mine. There's going to be actually 8 out of 10 top 10 players, and a couple of wildcards from Poland as well. Super excited for it. I think the walk-ons, like the walk-on songs, are certainly going to be like the best thing out of it. I think when we get to the venue, there's the atmosphere and etc. And then we just start, the like one of our some players that I've been watching on TV on stream, let's say, they just get there, and I'm actually in the crowd. Like, I think that's going to be fantastic. And I was thinking about it, like whether it would be possible for tennis to have something like this.
I think it would be
I
great.
guess
We should do it.
theoretically, right? I mean, it's
Yeah.
one of the best. It's one of the best things about martial arts or darts. Yeah, that's really excellent. I think I don't really have a clue, but I think if I had to choose it, I would certainly have something that like would be emotional for me, and probably I would change it quite frequently, which is something
Yeah.
people don't really do. In darts, for example, players there are a lot of players who just choose tracks that would get the crowd going and sort of start cheering for them, which I guess is a tactic in itself as well. John mentioned "Eye of the Tiger," and one of my favorite dart players actually has it as his walkout song, and I think it's just brilliant. Like anytime I hear "Eye of the Tiger," it's just so overplayed. It's
Yeah.
really just I hate it, frankly. Outside of two things. Raymond van Barnevelt's walkout song, and also Rocky, of course.
Yeah.
Like in these two particular things, Eye of the Tiger still works for me. Just
Yeah.
outside these contexts, no.
It is a little overplayed.
No.
Yeah.
It is
I
very overplayed. But in these two, yes, fantastic.
do you know what? I've realized what it was. I think I was asked this question when I guested on Murray Musings almost this time last year. It was around about Madrid. And I got asked this song. So I think if I was picking one for me to walk out, it would be Radioactive by Imagine Dragons. Just because I like the bass beat, and I think it's you could I think it would get me psyched up. I'm not necessarily an Imagine Dragons fan, but it's the first thing I could think of, because most of the other stuff I think of doesn't really have that kind of motivational hardcore beat. If I was picking walk-on songs for other players, which might be a fun discussion,
Yeah.
for me, I would actually pick certainly this time last year, or at least during the clay court season, I would have picked "Unstoppable" by Sia for Iga Swiatek. Because like the lyrics are literally, "I'm unstoppable, I win every single game." Which,
Okay.
let's face it, she was. Every single.
I don't think she's the kind of person who would choose it.
No,
well,
she
right?
wouldn't pick that one. No, she'd probably pick something like Led Zeppelin, because that's what she seems to like. But
Yeah.
like if you were
I think she used to listen to "Welcome to the Jungle" before walking out onto the court.
that would
So
actually be a good walk-on song.
she would probably do that. I think. Yeah.
"Welcome to the Jungle" by Led Zeppelin. Yeah, but like if you
Guns N' Roses.
yeah, no, sorry, Guns N' Roses.
Yeah.
I'm not good on my rock. What about, okay, if you were picking walk-on songs for other players, which do you think, okay, they have to walk out to this?
It's hard. I mean, I have one in my mind only.
Okay.
I'm also kind of wondering whether there are any songs about octopuses.
I was thinking the same thing for Medvedev. Yep.
I don't know. I do think that JJ Wolf would have no choice, and he would have to go out to Hungry like the Wolf. Like, there's just no other option. I've even seen, I can't remember what tournament it was, but at one of them, I think it was a main tour one, he won his match and they just played it, for example. And it's also a very famous darts walk-on song, because there's this guy Martin Adams who's at like almost 70 now, and his nickname is Wolfie, and he also walks out to Hungry like the Wolf. So Oh, Octopus's Garden. Yes, Jane. Thank you. Yeah, that would be perfect. Like, that would be so. It doesn't really work as a walk-on song, I think. I mean, Octopus's Garden, it would be kind of awkward, but that's like Medvedev, right? So I think that would be a great thing. And also Ringo singing it. I mean, come on, Ringo Starr. Yeah, it would be fantastic for Medvedev. I think
that would fit the Medvedev vibe very much. I'm trying to think what Carlos Alcaraz's would be. Oh, That's
Probably
hard.
something Spanish, right? Like
Yeah.
maybe there's like a
Anything.
Spanish tune that we don't.
Yeah, the only song in Spanish I know is Despacito, which would not work
Yeah,
for
I'm just
a
coming up
walk-on
with
song.
some Enrique Iglesias songs that I learned when I was learning Spanish. Our teacher would play us, like I don't even remember the titles, but I don't know. Oh,
What
oh yeah,
which One Direction song was that? Was that What Makes You Beautiful, or was it
I
a
can't remember, but
yeah.
I've
I've
seen
seen it,
like
yeah.
photos of it and probably even saw the clip at some point, but I can't remember what the song was. But there's also, of course, Sonego's song, and
Oh, Senegal has a
Chapo and
yes,
Mute would have to get out to Drip.
to their
Uh,
own
uh,
songs, yeah.
yeah, their song is Drip, I think, Chapo
Yeah.
and Mute, and Sonego I don't remember, but he has some insane views on it. And Rafa could do that song that he did with Shakira. Yes, that's the Gypsy, I think, or maybe Gypsy, but without D. I'm not sure,
I
but yeah, Rafa was in a music video for Shakira.
I forgot about that one, but yes, you're right. He is in that. Yeah, so yeah, that would probably work quite well, and actually, that song would actually work as a walk-on song as well. So why not? What would Djokovic's walk-on song be?
Um, hmm.
I don't know what what he likes. Maybe some kind of Buddhist chanting. I don't
Yeah,
know.
I have no clue what he likes actually. You know, um, I think if we're going with the songs that they actually did, then of course Federer and Dimitrov and Haas had that cover of "It's Hard to Say I'm Sorry," but I don't know if they would want to
That would not work as a
work out
walk-on
to
song. I'm
this.
gonna say this now.
I think Federer said though that he liked Backstreet Boys as a kid, so maybe
Yeah.
I mean as a kid, as a teen more. So maybe something like this. I don't know. I don't know which Backstreet Boys song would work as a walkout song.
Yeah.
But,
Maybe Backstreet's Back. I don't know.
Backstreet's Back. Oh yeah, that would be good. Yeah, like
Every,
it's dynamic enough at least.
it's dynamic enough. Yes, I wouldn't. I wouldn't go with. I Want It That Way.
Yeah, I
That's
wanted
supposed to be a
that.
meme. That's
Wouldn't like get him pumped. No.
no. But Backstreet's Back kind of would. I don't know the rest of the back catalogue, which is probably a shame for those of you who are Backstreet Boys fans, given I share a name with one of the Backstreet Boys band members. I believe is also called Nick Carter.
Oh right, I forgot about
Yeah.
this. Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah.
Hanya pointed it out to me a while back.
Hmm.
Oh,
I,
this is an interesting pick.
yeah, Medvedev could also do that. Like some, these guys who sort of appreciate the hate from the crowd sometimes. I don't think Djokovic does though. Like I think he rather would rather the crowd love him, but for sure over the course of his career he has sometimes benefited from the fact he can actually oppose them as well. But I don't think he likes that much, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah,
There you go.
very good question, actually. I didn't
Yeah, we
think
have
we were
a
gonna.
lot of fun with it. Yes, tennis. If you're listening, put out, bring on have walk-on songs for players. Like you kind of do it, but they're really generic. Like let the players have a little personality
Yeah,
when
and
they're walking the court.
the players don't decide, right?
Yeah.
And it's actually raining in Miami, by the way, as Sinner
Oh,
is set in a break up. So yeah, the match can be over very quickly, provided of course rain stops.
we're getting a. I got it. That's interesting story from John there. Oh,
Really? Oh wow.
okay, John. What was it? Because that was a long what was it? Like plug the podcast so people can go and find it and listen back to it. Oh, John's teasing us now. It's gonna be.
It has to be like some play on words, right? Yeah, but
Oh,
I mean, it's a big stretch. I think I thought it was gonna be some better wordplay than that. Um, would I don't know. And I mean, Holger Rune, a fan of CCR. I don't know what would Holger Rune like listen to. I don't know.
I don't know. Bad to the Bone.
Interesting.
Can imagine that one. Like basically, if he wants to, or like, what's a song where like the person's like full of himself, and like, yeah, I'm all that.
Yeah, no, John,
No.
I'm sorry, John, but it's just a little far, you know. Moon, Rune.
Oh, yeah. Oh, do you know what? I've just thought of two. Okay, so I've thought of two songs. I'm not necessarily saying they're good songs or even they work. They could work as walkout songs. One's a little bit more controversial, so you could go with like really,
Ooh, Toby with
really,
a good suggestion in the chat as well.
yeah.
You're
You're
so
so
vain,
vain.
Carly
Yeah,
Simone, I think.
hit him up by Tupac. So there's Uptown Funk, which is pretty generic, but you could do that. The other option would be I'm sexy and I know it.
Oh wow.
Although I could imagine there's probably some tennis players who probably go for that as well. Some of the
Marton
male ones.
Fuciovic, for example, with how
Yes,
often
that would be
he
totally
takes
Martin
off his shirt,
Fitch's
right?
walk-on song.
Yeah, that's actually very possible. Like there was a clip very recently. I can't remember if it was Indian Wells or Miami, where he was just
I think it's Miami.
randomly got to the camera, hop,
But yeah, it was
and
because like I think he obviously saw how much of a fuss his ab pics caused on social media.
yeah. I mean, every single player knew about it as well.
Yeah. Yes. There's a yeah. So yeah, that would totally be Fuciovic, 100%. And I think that would get the crowd going as well.
That could also be something for Azarenka, right? Because she was friends with Redfoo and the guy from LMFAO.
She wasn't friends with him. I'm pretty sure he's her ex.
I mean, I think that wasn't really said, right? I think it was like
I'm
pretty much.
I'm 99% sure he's her ex.
I mean, I think he is, but I think at least for a while it was maybe a bit. I'm not sure actually, but I think there was some ambiguity at first, at least when it comes to their relationship. Maybe they stated that explicitly later. It was certainly when she got pregnant, everyone was like, "Was it Redfoo's?"
Well, you could probably find it out because there was a massive custody battle for her child, so you'd probably be able to.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't. The baby wasn't with him, but
okay.
No, the baby wasn't with him, but when it was when it was news that she was pregnant, everyone that was what everyone thought of at first, of course. Yeah, I mean, we've been going with this for 2 hours.
Yeah.
Risivori and Sinner have, of course, not returned to the court because it's still raining. So I guess we will be heading to a finish soon because, well,
I think so. I mean, like I've literally walked in from work and started streaming, so I should probably eat something at some point.
Yeah.
But it's been great to well, that escalated quickly, meme. Yes, let's face it, like if you have me on a live stream, that's probably gonna happen. You're probably gonna need that at some point. But yeah, I think we should call it there. The tennis is on pause. We've had a good chat around different things in Miami. Keep an eye on the channel for lots of great content coming your way as we continue to cover Miami. One thing I will just want to say before we go is obviously
John is saying that he's gonna join in 2 minutes. I'm not sure for what, but we'll see.
One thing I'm gonna one thing I was gonna say was
I'm afraid now.
Oh no! What's he gonna do?
I feel like when my mom was getting back from the PT, how do you call it, like the parents' meeting at school?
Yeah. Same, call it the same thing. But I was gonna say, like, you and I have got some regular. You're gonna see us pretty regularly on Talking Tennis after Miami as well.
Yeah.
We're going to be doing weekly roundup shows over the clay season, possibly also the grass court season, on the ATP and the WTA. And I'm helming the WTA show. Damien, I believe you're helming the ATP show.
Yeah, that's the plan. I think Mario is also joining along.
Yep.
That's I think what John told me.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's gonna be fun. Just probably like an hour every week to talk about what's been happening. So basically, like something we've seen today. Probably a little more. I don't want to say formal, but probably a little more like cohesive in terms of actually talking about tennis than like future things. But well, theoretically, it might happen as well. We're probably just gonna talk about what's happened the past week and also, look forward, but not as much forward. But don't worry, streams like that are also gonna happen from time to time for sure. We will get our chances to discuss the walkout songs and the other very like the
I
yeah
I
the
think we've had
issues
very
that are
productive. I think we've had very productive discussions. Other than that, I think it was good to talk about the next gen because let's face it, that's come
yeah
up in Miami. We've talked a bit about the future of the women's game, what that's looking like, and I think we'll know. It's always hard talking about a tournament halfway through a story of what's going on because it's not done yet. We don't. We know we have an idea of trajectory, but even before the stream started, we probably would have said, "Yeah, the women's final is going to feature Aryna Sablenka," and now,
yeah.
as whilst this stream was on, we found out it definitely wasn't. So
If we
um,
started the stream at like 5 p.m., we'd be saying completely different stuff about the women's events. That's true.
exactly. And I think, it's difficult when it's unfolding, but we've kind of got an idea of what's happened so far, what the stories have been. Sort of definitely Miami's been about some of the top players getting through fairly easily, but also seeing some new names popping up and doing well. The man himself, John Silk, you took your time.
So, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, good. I hope my microphone is working. Maybe if I sound a bit not clear, then maybe it's the microphone. Listen, I love this. Sorry, I just wanted to have a quick word about the music things. And Damien, you disappoint me with the "I see a bad moon rising." I think that's. I see trouble on the way. I've got the microphone here, by the way, and I feel like I'm on stage in front of 100,000 people rather than
Don't
you
go
two
out
and five
tonight.
viewers.
John, have you been drinking?
There's a bad rune on the rise.
Well, I guess I may as well just admit to it. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm exposed.
Yeah, you should
Hashtag not
own it.
sponsored.
No, actually, now that I
yet.
think of it, like when you said it like that, I guess sang it, and there's like also like there's a bad rune on the rise, right? That's
Exactly.
kind
You
of
got it.
better.
I
Yeah,
knew you
I
needed to
didn't
hear
really think of
my.
it in the context of the song. Yeah, I didn't think of it in the context of the song, like what's actually in the lyrics. I was thinking just about the sheer wordplay, but yeah, I can see it now. Not only because you joined the stream and I'm like scared or something.
But I had a feel. No, I know that. Damien, there's very little that scares you when it comes to tennis talk, let's say, or many other subjects. But I had a feeling you might be just swayed by just hearing it. So it just came to me about a week ago. I think I was doing a thumbnail for Miami like a week ago, like preview latest or something like that. And we've already, by the way, over a week into this tournament, and we are getting a bit like that with And by the way, sorry if I'm keeping either of you, but we are getting a bit like that with Masters tournaments. They are coming. These two tournaments are sort of almost like mini slams, right?
Mm.
Yeah, we talked about it a little bit at the beginning of the stream that plenty of people on Twitter have been saying that this event has dragged for a bit.
Because
We
of Indian
basically
Wells.
said that we basically said that we can understand why totally. I certainly don't feel that way because there's so much challenger tennis as well, but yeah, I can see why, and it's weird on Wednesday, to have just 4 singles matches for sure. Yeah, the Masters 1 week and a half, I'm not sure it really makes sense.
Listen, for me, less is more. I think over the year we can keep the sunshine double just because there's a bit of a thing about this for tennis purists like us. We can keep it
Yeah,
maybe.
it's a tradition by now, right?
Yeah,
But
right. We can
not
put a week
not
between
the
the two. We can,
other Masters.
Yeah.
right. We need to lose one or two, but someone's going to be very unhappy.
It occurs to me like the Sunshine Double, we make such a big deal out of this double compared to the Madrid Rome double or the Canada Cincinnati double. I think probably because there's a slam straight after the other two, and so they're always going to be seen in the context of that, whereas this is seen as in the context of its own thing. But yeah, I think we don't always make a fuss of those two things, even though in theory they're probably equally impressive. Although maybe you have to win one additional match in both Indian Wells and Miami compared to the others because they're slightly bigger draws.
Yeah, but there's also a lot less time, right, to recover. So, but yeah, even with Rome and Madrid being longer this year, I doubt we're going to be talking about the Rome Madrid double or something like that.
Because it's all going to be about French.
I think you're right. Yeah, they serve as a warm up, and this does not really. So yeah,
I see the Sunshine Double holding its own speciality, in a way. And do you know what? I would, if somebody said, "Listen, let's lose Madrid," I would be fine with that. If somebody said, "Let's lose Cincinnati," that's probably the one I would lose. I'd be fine with that. I do think that over the course of the year, less will be more, and we would probably appreciate the Sunshine Double even more. Hi Matthew, yeah, we are, but that's partly my fault because they were just about to shut up shop, and I said I want to speak to Damien about Bad Runa Rising.
No, you wanted to sing to Damien, which sounds a little bit weird coming out of my mouth now. But anyway,
didn't you? You had to go with the "Don't You Forget About Me," which I like, by the way, Nick. I thought it was funny and appealing in equal measure.
Which is how we got onto this topic of music, because my brain went, "Why the hell not?"
I mean, we have come to. I need to check the Sinner score. Actually, I haven't even got it on my.
It's raining. It's raining. Sinner set up 6-3, so there is no live tennis happening right now, which is another reason why we're going a little bit doolally. But hey, at least it's not Cliff Richard.
yeah.
You guys have already sung, right? So I guess it's my turn as well.
Damien, you know the Cliff Richard thing with Wimbledon. You know this. Do you know who Cliff Richard is?
Yeah, I know who Cliff Richard is, but I don't know his
sort of the
Wimbledon.
British. Some might say very poor man's Elvis. Let's. I mean, he was basically an
he had
Elvis.
some good songs now.
Yeah, fine, catchy tunes. But the whole gimmick, if you like, of him in the 60s when he first, probably even 50s when he first emerged, was that he was the British sort of Elvis, but he was never anywhere there, if you like. But a much healthier version. But with him and Wimbledon, do you know this? And then he would start. Okay, yeah. So he's a Wimbledon fan legend, right, Nick?
Yeah. So this is particularly 1996, I believe, which was heavily affected by rain.
Yeah.
And they didn't have roofs. They didn't build a roof until 12 years later. So the Wimbledon legend is Cliff Richard was in the crowd during very much a rain-affected day. So he decided to entertain so he ended up I don't know if he decided to, or if he was like, "Cliff, you're here. Can you just entertain the crowd?" And someone shoved him a mic, and he started singing to everyone.
I vaguely remember it actually happening, and it was a bit more like he sort of started doing it, and then someone gave him a mic or a mixture of the two. By the way, if he's a poor man's for Elvis, I think we're a poor man's Cliff Richard in the echelons of this, and we just started. There's a rain delay in Miami, so we just started singing.
Yeah.
But he became he's always been a bit of a super fan of tennis, a bit like the Speaker of the House in the UK became a super fan of Federer. Burko, exactly, John Burko. So there was this sort of thing that Cliff Richard was obviously into the tennis in the 70s and the 80s, and he dated Sue Barker. Yeah, they've actually dated, I think. And I don't think I'm out of turn with saying that. I think they were actually an item at some point in the late 70s, early 80s, and they continue their friendship as Matthew suggests.
He would be like a fair bit older, right? Though.
Yeah, you might be right on that one, Damien. But yeah, there might be an age gap there.
16 years almost.
Yeah,
he was born in India, by the way. Interestingly,
who was born in India?
Cliff Richard was born in India. I have no clue how to pronounce it, but it's a pretty famous town, like Lucknow. Like it's huge, but I don't know how to pronounce it.
Every day's a school day, Damien. Do you say that in Poland as well?
There's something. Jesus, I cannot come up with it right now. But it's something that you learn your whole life, or something like this.
You learn something every day is another one. Yeah.
For those who I think it's a man learns something his whole life, or something like that. Yeah.
Okay.
Go on, Nick.
Człowiek uczy się całe życie.
For those who are interested, because of the rain, Amazon Prime in the UK have now decided to show a replay of the Alcaraz Ruud final from last year.
I thought you were going to say of Cliff Richard singing at Wimbledon.
No, because that only the BBC show that clip.
Yeah.
Oh, and my stream
every
is showing a replay of John Silk singing Bad Moon Rising.
They may get that desperate one day.
Oh gosh, yeah. Maybe
one
we
of
should...
you or even both of you have to leave, right? I got that vibe, and that's fine.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I probably should. I mean, at some point.
I think I'll leave too. I mean, we've given you plenty of great content, guys.
You've done great. No, you have.
Thanks for, of course, thanks guys for commenting as well. It was fun as always, as usual.
Yeah, always fun.
Matthew was surprised we're still going. We weren't. We were expecting 2 hours.
You were about to leave, and I stopped you. I know, so I could sing.
No.
Does my mic sound okay? Because if it does, I might keep going for 5 or 10 minutes.
Yeah, your mic sounds fine.
Okay, good to know. Yeah, no, I might just talk to myself or the 5 people that are tuning in for 5 minutes. Yeah, so I might. But you two guys can sail off into the sunset, and I will finish
been
my
great
beer.
fun.
Yeah, cool.
We'll see you all soon, and keep an eye on the channel. Cheers, John.
Very much, guys. Take care. See you both,
guys.
So then there was just me. And by the way, I'm just not waking up, but I'm becoming aware of the Sablenka news, which has kind of shocked me. Of course, it's destroyed my prediction of a Sablenka final against Rybakina. And I guess this was probably touched on by the guys earlier. I guess now Rybakina, who has had a bit of a bumpy journey to the semi-finals, going 3 sets and obviously facing match points. I think it was against Badosa a couple of rounds ago. It's kind of surprising that she's had now it looks like she's the one, Rybakina rather than Sablenka, that may well coast to the title. I know I mentioned to the guys before that maybe Pegula has got to the semis partly through more through luck than judgment, if you like, in terms of her draw. But yeah, let me know what you think in the live chat. Jane, I'm glad you enjoyed it. Very fun show. Thank you, Damien and Nick. Yes, they did see us through. I'm just going to quickly write to Jack because Jack said he might join us. And I'm going to write to him right now. And if he's going to join us, then maybe we can continue for a few more minutes. Maybe I can send Jack a voice message, but maybe I won't. I'll just send him a quick message. And if he's going to join us, we'll continue for a few more minutes. And if he doesn't, that's okay too. Yeah, let me know what you think about the Sablenka result. I think it's probably the shock of the tournament. Am I going a bit too far? Yes, Jane, I know the Nostradamus suggestion. Listen, even Nostradamus had an off day, and as far as I'm aware, he wasn't a huge tennis fan. So maybe, I listen, Nostradamus, not every day was predicting the future and getting all things perfect. That's the way I see it. By the way, make sure you hit the like button if you are tuning into me. Kind of shocked by Sablenka, and also subscribe to the channel if you are new. Yeah, I find this Sablenka news a bit of is it the biggest shock of the tournament? Yeah, I would say so. Let's see what Jack, I've just had a message from him. Let's see. Yeah, 5 minutes, he says. Okay, cool. We'll probably go on for another 15, 20 minutes. Cool, that's fine. So Jack is going to join us. Maybe the rain will stop in Miami in the meantime, and we might have some live action to discuss. But it's 10:20 here in Central Europe, so we'll see how that goes. Yeah, I find the Sablenka, I don't know. I'm just trying to think of a result that has kind of jolted more this year. Maybe the Rafalovs at the Australian Open. Maybe that was was on a par with it. Maybe Novak's loss to Medvedev in Dubai, maybe one or two of Iga's losses, but the more Iga was losing, the more, kind of even her loss to Rybakina in Indian Wells, I don't know, I thought I could see that coming. I even predicted, and maybe Nostradamus was back here on Jack's podcast just about a day before, I think it was, Rybakina played Iga in Australia, and I said, I think Iga's going to come a cropper here, and I thought Iga would lose to Rybakina, albeit I made that call after I saw Rybakina polish off Collins so comfortably. So, yeah. And regarding Sinner, up a set, of course, it's a rain delay for those of you just tuning in, wondering why we aren't talking about Sinner's match with Rusevori. Rusevori, by the way, has had a pretty good year. He's up a set and a break, I should probably add. So Sinner's certainly looking good for a semi-final appearance where, of course, potentially Alcaraz is lying in wait. The Alcaraz Sinner match at Indian Wells, by the way, didn't quite have the fireworks of New York, but even the fireworks that occurred at Wimbledon or some of their other clashes last year. I think it was still a very good match and was very competitive, but straight sets. I suggested, by the way, that the Alcaraz, and he's got to play Taylor Fritz, and we can talk about that in a second. I'm sure the other two guys had their thoughts on that clash, which will be coming up in a few hours. I did think that that Alcaraz would have more obstacles, more troubles, if you like, in Miami than he had in Indian Wells. He obviously won Indian Wells in straight sets, or so I should say, without dropping a set. I would still be surprised if that was to occur in Miami. Probably mainly because of the conditions. And I know what you might well say, he's not dropped a set yet. Well, from now, and potentially even the previous round, but from now is where I expect things to get a little bit more difficult for Carlos. I still predicted him before this tournament began to complete the Sunshine Double and therefore win in Miami. But I didn't say it with the same level of confidence that I had for Indian Wells. With Indian Wells, I don't know, I guess I just had confidence in the fact that his health wasn't going to be such a big issue. Him and Juan Carlos Ferrero wouldn't commit to this tournament if they didn't feel like this. No one would have put Eubanks, as you say, Jane, in their quarterfinal, but that's how it is, and that's how tennis works out. Really pleased for the American. Do I see that fairy tale continuing? Maybe not, but let me know if you disagree in the live chat or if you're watching this retrospectively in the comments below. But yeah, regarding Alcaraz, I do think from now on is where it gets interesting. The main reason I think I'm predicting him to at least find it more difficult in Miami compared to Indian Wells is the conditions. I just think that he'd shown a pedigree in Indian Wells for me. And I know you might say he's the Miami reigning champion, but I don't know. I just thought his run in Indian Wells, even if it ended in a semi-final defeat to Rafa Nadal a year ago, was arguably more impressive, the level he was showing, given the lack of maturity he should have had at that point and the opponents he faced, i.e. Rafa in the semi-final. I mean, that Rafa semi-final, I think, kind of goes under the radar in terms of matches of the year for last year. Which, by the way, I was thinking about just today. I was thinking matches of the year. We did it in December of last year, or they got published in December. It'll happen again this year. But I was thinking to myself, what would be the contenders until now? The obvious one is Sablenka against Rybakina from the Australian Open final. Has there been another? I mean, Medvedev, Djokovic kind of sticks in the memory in terms of that semi-final, but it was straight sets, and Djokovic had a really bad day at the office, I would argue, that day. But I know we're only at the end of March, but by the end of March last year, we already had Nadal against Medvedev in Australia. We already had, I think, Kecmanovic against Alcaraz as well. And certainly on the men's side, I think we had a few more contenders at this point last year than we have this year. There haven't been. Has there been a men's match, for example, this year that you would potentially have down the road for a potential top 5, top 10 match of the year? Not sure that we have compared to the ATP Tour a year ago. The women's tour, I mean, the Indian Wells final was good, but it didn't go 3 sets, which I think probably has to if it's going to be a match of the year. The only match that really stands out to me in the last couple of years that was straight sets, that was just insane, would be Dominic Thiem against Rafa in the end of year finals at the probably London. Was it in London? Probably the last year it was in London. That was a straight sets match, but by and large, matches of the year, it's going to be a tough ask to say this was a straight sets match, but it was insane. Yeah, Khachanov, by the way, breaking his losing streak. I agree, but I don't know if you would put that, Jane, as a potential match of the year so far. But it is obviously a big achievement for Khachanov. Is it the same, though, against a Tsitsipas in the current situation with the shoulder injury, etc.? Don't know. Anyway, yeah, Khachanov, hats off to him. He's so consistent, Khachanov. I just don't find consistency as exciting. But, 2 Grand Slam semi-finals and then obviously beating Tsitsipas today. And but he always goes until maybe you'd expect him. Maybe Indian Wells, that defeat to Rybakina was a bit of a surprise, but I know Gil Gross was big on the Spaniard, and so maybe it wasn't such a monumental loss. The Pegula match last night, I didn't watch it, Jane, I must say, but yeah, maybe Rybakina, by the way, saving match points against Badosa. That would be a potential, because I'm already thinking about it. There will be a matches of the year for sure series that we do. And hopefully, and listen, last year was amazing. Had some great guests. Gil Gross and I had a good chat about Sinner Alcaraz at the US Open. And if we get a repeat of anything like that match, that'll have obviously be included. I had a good chat with Mark Petchey and about Medvedev and Nadal and Blair Henley and Pam Shriver, of course. And many others. Owen, I just know him as Owen from Popcorn Tennis. We had a great chat about Nadal and Djokovic at the French Open last year. So there'll be many, many other contenders. But my brain is already whirring about this. Whirring, I don't know if it's a British English expression, but I'm already thinking about matches of the year and just thinking about the quality of this year's tennis. And yeah, it's been good, but I'm probably more on the WTA side than the ATP. But I guess that's defined by the Australian Open, where I think there was a nice crescendo on the WTA side that was just lacking on the ATP side. That just never felt that, it's partly because Djokovic is so good, and especially in Melbourne, that just felt inexorable, his rise there. By the way, I've been on a ramble. Jack hopefully will be joining us in a minute or two. But in the meantime, make sure you hit that like button and don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you are new. Also, many other episodes we've done in recent times. I don't know if you checked out the Nike interview I did recently. Of course, we did a show all about, about many different things, but basically how Nike are they sort of backing off a little bit in tennis? I spoke to the former Nike tennis director. He's not there anymore, but he was a tennis director there until 2017. We've seen Federer, of course, depart most famously in 2018. Serena has retired, albeit there was, the relationship continued until then and may continue beyond, but she has retired. And then more recently, Rublev and Stevens, Marta Kostyuk, I think, and Vondrousova, and somebody else whose name escapes me. They've all left Nike or gone their separate ways. So a good chat I had with Mike Nakajima, former tennis director. They said, listen, Nike are sort of realizing that it represents less than 1% of their business, tennis. But is that tennis's fault? Is that Nike's fault? Is it the players' fault? Whatever. Anyway, I did a great interview with Mike Nakajima. So make sure you subscribe to the channel and check out some previous episodes. Let's have a look at some of the comments from Jane here. I know Jane is a member and you can become a member too. Tsitsipas in bad form, yeah, but it may help him a little if it's a mental block. Yeah, I just think that for Tsitsipas, why we know the whole pressure. He's mentioned it about playing these tournaments, but why play both Indian Wells and Miami? I don't know. Didn't make that much sense to me. And it was just regarding Miami and maybe even Indian Wells was just an accident waiting to happen. Nadal Zverev, yeah, I was at that match. So was Owen, by the way, from Popcorn Tennis. Make sure you check out Popcorn Tennis. That Nadal Zverev match, I would love to, if we go back and see how that would have turned out. Yeah, but I have a love-hate sort of relationship with that match, Jane, not just because of the injury that obviously occurred to Alexander or Sasha, maybe I should call him. I was intrigued, and I thought the tiebreak at the end of the first set was insane. Given the scoreboard 6-2, facing 4 set points, and also some of the winners that Rafa produced that day. But there was also something a bit uncomfortable about watching 3 hours of tennis and not yet being at the second set tiebreak. It's not quite the same as a Novak Rafa match where they're going an hour and a half and playing insane levels. The conditions that day contributed to that match going like it did. It wasn't, particularly in Sasha's case, we're not looking at a person who is involved in lengthy rallies that often and pushing each other. That was all about it being warm and muggy and slow, and the roof was closed because it had been raining, but they wouldn't reopen it even when it stopped raining. So I have a, yeah, I get it was insane and would have been very interesting. It could have gone 5 sets, but it could also have gone 7 hours. And I don't mean 7 hours or like the 5.5 that Rafa and Novak had in Australia in 2012, was it, I think? Or the 4.5 or 5 hours or whatever it was that they had over just 4 sets in 2021 at the French Open. That match was a bit different. It wasn't like, wow, what on earth am I watching here? I'm watching history as Novak and Rafa push each other, and Rafa and Roger, of course, at Wimbledon in particular, and Australia too. It was just what I would describe in British English, at least, Jane, as a slogfest. It was just sturgy and tough, and just the ball was just bouncing and just waiting to be hit on both sides of the net. And it was just like that. So despite the fact, and they kept breaking each other's serve. I mean, Zverev has got a massive serve, but also there was some double faults that day as well from Sasha that, I think the reality that he could at least make it 1 set all as that second set was unfolding, I think unnerved Sasha a bit. And I even think that perhaps the conditions ended up resulting in his injury. And I know Owen certainly felt that way. But yeah, maybe I'm being too pessimistic on this one. Jane, yeah, Shelton would have been a real grab. I think it would have been, but I know he's obviously signed up like Iga has with is it, or ON, the Swiss brand that I know Roger Federer has an investment in. And yeah, he was quick to tweet about that, and yeah, it could well have been a good grab for Nike. But like I say, I think I suggested to Mike that maybe they're just putting all their eggs in the Carlos Alcaraz and to some extent Sablenka basket. And he was like, well, you don't want to do that. Of course you don't, but if you think you've got the right ones that'll see you through the next decade or so, and as Mike suggested, you just want to see your brand or your person holding the trophy on the Sunday afternoon or Sunday evening, depending on where it is in the world. Sunday night, late into Sunday night sometimes. If you just have that, that's enough. I mean, he said that Nike as well, sometimes, in the past have sort of sponsored tournaments, but in the end, they just want to have the winner on a Sunday, holding the trophy aloft, etc. Yeah, Jane. Yeah, and just conditions as a whole. I think the rule, by the way, that pretty much exists throughout tennis, I'm pretty sure it exists at Roland Garros and Wimbledon too, is once the roof is closed, they have to keep it closed. It just seems a silly rule. We saw it with Novak and Rafa in 2018, where both players, I think, came back on the Saturday and it was blazing sunshine outside. But because they started the match with the roof open, then they closed the roof on the Saturday or so. No, Friday evening, I guess it would have been. but they couldn't finish the match, not because of that, but because there's a kind of rule at Wimbledon where I think they have to finish at 11 o'clock, I guess I think it's partly because of noise pollution and also just being aware of that people have to get home, and the underground, I think, finished around midnight, but just generally, whatever, they can't go beyond, I think it's 11 or 11:30. So that's when it finishes. And they came back the next day and they're like, got to keep it in the same conditions, even though it was dry. So they had to do that. By the way, those of you wondering why I'm going off at all these tangents is because currently in Miami, it is raining, and therefore Yannick Sinner and Rusevori, the play has been suspended between those two. Otherwise, I may keep you up to date with that. By the way, Sinner is up a set and a break. Yeah, Jane, I would suggest that Carlos is a pretty safe bet for Nike for maybe even, I mean, what's he now? 19? If he has in terms of length of career, someone like Roger or even Rafa or Novak, and I'm not talking about success, but if it just ends up being the length that they had, then yeah, it's a pretty safe bet for the next 2 decades. That should see them through. But Mike said, listen, the days of signing up 9 of the top 10 best young tennis players, those days are gone for Nike. And that's probably where companies like On and maybe New Balance and obviously Adidas, a more established brand, are seeing a gap and obviously picking up these players. And Iga as well would seem a pretty safe bet in terms of her age. So both obviously Shelton and Iga who just signed up with them. But yeah, make sure you check out the episode. I'll probably I'll post that episode in the live chat so you can all check it out. Where are we? I'll probably post that now. Yeah, so check that one out. It was a good interview with Mike. Hopefully you enjoy my editing skills as well on that front. But yeah, it was a good interview and had a lot of good time. By the way, while I do this, make sure you hit the like button. Don't forget to subscribe. And by the way, we also have members exclusive perks that I know Jane has enjoyed in the past being a member. Make sure you check out that and become a potential member of Talking Tennis, and you can enjoy some of the perks that come with that, including exclusive footage and the opportunity to send memes or images or something during live chats, and a million other things too. I can see Jack has now just joined us. Jane, they're being quite critical of some of the kits of Nike. Jack, probably you are aware. Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you okay. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you great. Probably you're aware we went off at various tangents because, as you may well know, the rain has interrupted play, and probably as a result, we'll just sort of do 15, 20 minutes or so more. But Jack, what is your thought, immediate, cold, hot take, I'm not sure what it is, on Sablenka going out today?
I've just found that out, actually. So I've been out coaching. I've literally just found that out there. I found out she double faulted on a big point, so maybe there's some issues there again, kind of creeping up, but probably gut feeling is Surstay just played well. She's a good player. She can play well enough to beat players like that. She can't have done anything close to how she played the other day, Sablenka, right? Because the way she served against Krejcikova was, I think, the best serving performance I've seen from anybody this year. It was insane. So the level can't quite have been there, but Surstay is a good player.
That result against Krejcikova, or that performance against Krejcikova, and then today's result, I didn't see today's match either. Just shocked me. I just can't believe that she lost in straight sets to Chastaya. Maybe I'm underplaying Chastaya too much.
The only thing I'll say about Chastaya is she's got an underrated backhand. So the peak's quite high. It's not bad. But I've not seen that from her in like 3 years. I can't remember the last time she played a match that made me go, wow. And maybe she did it then. Again, I can't comment too much, John, because I didn't see it. But the takeaway for me is there's no way Sablenka could have served as well as the other day because she was unplayable.
Right. So, I mean, this is probably where I don't know, probably where I went more towards cold take than hot takes, because neither of us watched the match. It's just going, but there are moments in sport where you just go, what? Scotland beat Spain 2-0?
Yes.
And
well, apparently Spain aren't in their pomp anymore. I don't know much about
true.
football, so I can't comment.
I know. But you know what I mean? I mean, whether you're a huge football fan or a small but even for me, I mean, listen, maybe it's recency bias, bearing in mind it was just a couple of hours ago. But I don't know. Is there a result this year that surprised me that much?
Yeah, I
Maybe
agree. Actually, I totally agree, John. I think it's definitely the most surprising result this year, I would say.
Djokovic beating Medvedev is one that sprung to mind in Dubai, but
No, that wasn't. I don't think that was too surprising. Either of them
maybe.
could be either of, they could beat each other on any given day. So stay out of nowhere. She's really had a pretty poor couple of seasons before 2023. She's put together a couple of wins against Garcia. We kind of thought it was a flash in the pan, or it was Garcia. This maybe proves she's playing better than we're giving her credit for. Again, though, there's no way in hell Sablenka served as well as she did the other day. It was untouchable. It was so good. So something had to have dipped, right? So that's maybe a little worrying, and maybe we're just bigging her up a little too much. And maybe Rybakina deserves that top spot, because I've been bigging a Sablenka up. At least Rybakina is delivering the same quality of game every single match. Sablenka's now showing a couple of matches in a row, maybe a little flakier than we gave her credit for.
But Rybakina's had, I don't know if it's Rybakina or Rybakina, but you get the idea. She's had a couple of bumps in the road. I mean, I think back to Indian Wells. I think it was 2 tie breaks against Kenin in the first or second round, maybe second round there. I think of probably first round for Rybakina, maybe, but second round for Kenin. I think of this week, of course, against Paula Badosa. I think she was facing a match point, wasn't she? So there's been a few, but the bumps in the road are kind of okay. And you see a player like Igor, of course, who famously over the last few months is just swatting people aside and then losing. Maybe even with Sablenka, but to a much lesser extent. She's beating Krejcikova in straight sets, but then suddenly is out.
The one thing, the difference between the two, Rybakina's game is great. Her returns aren't as repeatedly effective as Sablenka for me. What I'm getting at is you should expect to see harder matches for Rybakina, right? She can't play out of her skin on return every single match. Some of them might be a bit closer. Sablenka has got the power to win every match she plays fairly comfortably against players that can't hit the ball, within top 5 sort of standard, right? But everybody else, she has the weaponry to, and now she has the technique to repeat that every single match. So that sort of dip points to mental, because I thought she'd sorted all that out technically. Basically, she has. So it must have been a mental lapse, which is worrying if she wants to reach number 1, which is her goal. But
you spoke to the biomechanist. Am I saying that right?
Yes, yeah, the biomechanist. Don't know.
Biomechanist. Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Potato. There's a lot of potatoes here. It's fine.
So you spoke to him about, I don't know, it was certainly published about 6 weeks ago, and check out that interview on Jack's channel On the Line. But he was very much, and by the way, she touched upon him, I guess, in September during the US Open run that she had there, about how it was more technical than anxiety. And I think he was very much of that opinion, right? That it's, no, listen, you can have bad days and you can maybe feel anxious on break points and match points and so on, but he was very much a case of no, this is what the issue is, right? It's more of a technical issue, right?
Yeah.
But you feel today that maybe you didn't see today's match, but you feel, including that Indian Wells final, that's obviously what's sticking in your mind too, where she had a few sudden. You do think that there is at least a percentage of a mental issue here?
Yeah, I'm basing this. It's a little hearsay, obviously, because I didn't see the match, but I'm basing it off of her performance in Indian Wells when the serve did start to go off, and there was nothing really technically going wrong. She was just reverting to somewhere in between the two serves. She said she didn't adjust the serve for the wind. It became a little bit more jarred. I'm talking about these technical changes that have happened, like people know them, but I'll flesh them out a little bit, because I did get to talk to Gavin, who's a really knowledgeable guy. He knows his stuff. He sorted out the forehand in particular with Sablenka. It's now a really heavy shot. That's probably not the shot that broke down today, because it's much spinnier. It's at the same time still super, super heavy shot, very repeatable. That's why I was saying the returns in general for Sablenka are, the money basically. She should be able to do that all day, every day. The serve has always been historically a problem. That was the shot that broke down in Indian Wells. Gavin basically did some work to make sure her left arm wasn't to the right of her head. There was a bit more balance going on. He made sure that the serve wasn't staying up like that for too long. There's that sort of abbreviation in Sablenka's serve where she stops there and then she goes. It's a little bit more fluid nowadays. I think you tend to see Sablenka when the serve kind of wavers a little bit. The arm starts to go in the wrong place. There's a little bit of a loss of balance. It's not far out, but it's enough out. Like I saw the second serve today on the double fault on a big break point at 4-all in the first set. It was maybe a few millimeters out. But again, it's enough. If you're losing your balance a little bit, that's all it takes. So again, yeah, I would say it's mental. If stuff's wavering and stuff's going all over the place, technically that probably points to mental. She should have sorted that out already, John.
What are your thoughts? Let's focus on the WTA for now. What are your thoughts on this tournament? For me, the standout story has been, maybe until today with Sablenka at least, Bianca Andreescu. That was the narrative, and it's a sort of a, well, I don't know what the word is, but I mean very much up down story. There's unfortunately a sad ending to that story in terms of the injury, but the tennis before it was pretty. I went into this tournament and I said, I think I was on a podcast, on the Popcorn podcast with Triheri and Nick about just over a week ago, and I said I don't see a way that Andreescu is winning this match against Raducanu. I said that there's nothing that I've seen in the previous 6 months, but there had been some things that I'd seen from. If it had been 6 months ago, it'd have been like, I don't know who's winning this in a way, because it could be both, and then whichever one wins, it goes out to Saka in the next round. But I was just seeing a positive trajectory with Raducanu, including Australian Open, despite the fact she went out early to Coco Gauff there. I was seeing some positive signs from her, and there was nothing in 2023, at least, that I'd seen from Bianca Andreescu that would suggest that she was winning that match. Once she won that match, there was some momentum there, very much, that she took into Saka and so on. Of course, it ends in tears, quite literally, in terms of the injury. But what are your thoughts on the Bianca Miami affair, if you like?
Really sad it had to end like that. She looked like she was gaining loads of momentum. The match that impressed me the most was her match against Sakkari. Yes, the Raducanu was impressive. I almost forgot, but actually that actually happened. Obviously, it's before the seeded players. It's the first round. But the match against Sakkari was phenomenal. Sakkari deserves so much credit. She's still playing really well, and she didn't play that badly at all in that match. Andreescu just came to the fore there, and she played a match similar to her 2021 format, or is it 2019? Is it as long ago as that now?
2019 that she won Indian Wells and US Open, yeah.
Yeah. So it was that long ago. It looked like that sort of level where, she could have just ran away with a bunch of matches. I could have seen that comeback against Alexandrova happen fairly easily. Then it would have been Kvitova in the next round. In fact, with Cersteta then in the semi-finals, Andreescu had a really, really good chance. So really, really sad that had to happen. The flip side of that is very encouraging going forwards. Unfortunately, the clay is right around the corner. It's not historically been Andreescu's favourite surface, but everybody's got a chance if they're playing that sort of level. So,
yeah, I don't know what the prognosis is regarding her injury or whatever. I mean, I actually, in a way, when she got, I haven't heard. Have you heard anything in the last 48 hours?
Yeah, just from her Twitter page, she seems fairly lighthearted about it. At least she's quite positive about it. Yeah, so my take is that it doesn't look too bad. She says hopefully nothing serious, basically.
Okay, great. I mean, so that's huge. I mean, when I was in the stadium when Zverev did his ligaments in on the ankle, if you like, and it seemed it's an ankle ligament issue with her, whether it's a sprain, whether it's a twist, or whether it's more severe. When it happened to Zverev, there was a scream. He stayed on the floor for a couple of minutes. To me, it was just like, this is not with 99% of tennis injuries. We're like, well, is he going to come back on the court? Is he not coming back on the court? Is she going to be out for a couple of weeks? You don't have any idea, in a way. It could be anything between 2 minutes and 2 months, if you like. But with Zverev that day, it was like, we might not. I'm telling you now, within minutes, within seconds, even if it happened, because I didn't hear a crack or anything, but it was just like, this is not even. He's not even. Never mind coming back on the court. We might not see him this year, and that was an immediate feeling with how that match panned out, but also with the moment it happened. With Andreescu the day, I don't know. It was just like, it's obviously messed up her day, and she's really annoyed because this is her moment, her best moment in probably 3 years on the court, 4 years on the court. But I also got a feeling that this could be a couple of weeks. It could be a bit more, but yeah.
I'll give you verbatim exactly what she said. Basically
Cool.
said, woke up with a brace in my foot. Anyone know what happened? Then sort of laughing face. So there's your sort of lightheartedness. But then she said, on a serious note, that was the worst pain I've ever felt. Praying for nothing serious. Still waiting on official results. Thank you, everyone, for your thoughts and kind words. Maybe a little less optimistic than I thought it was, but at least she's able to laugh about it. That certainly wasn't Zverev, so it's not quite that. But I'm sure we'll see her this year. I don't think it looked like anything like Zverev's injury anyway. Is all I can relate it to.
Yeah, no, and I saw that tweet too, and I thought it was amusing and nice. And but I remember Zverev, for example, doing a thing from a hospital bed. I think within 48 hours of basically, this is a while. But I mean, I know I was there with Owen. Well, I say with Owen. Owen was in the stadium at the time, and I think we both knew immediately that the Sasha thing was different. It could have been a couple of months, as it turned out. Ended up being, I think, 7-8 months really before he returned, maybe December, for a couple of exhibitions. But anyway, I digress. So regarding the WTA, are there any other storylines big storylines that I'm missing, if you like?
Do you know, Kvitova goes under the radar. She has got a real chance. In fact, I'd put her as the favourite now to get to the final, maybe Cirstea, just by virtue of having won an extra match. But Kvitova on paper, before Sablenka got put out, obviously, should be your person to get to the final. It's going to be a toss-up between Alexandrova and Kvitova. They both hit a very, very big ball. But you'd imagine whoever gets through that beats Cirstea. Obviously, I don't want to underrate her. It would be probably would be the most surprising thing this year if Sorana Cirstea is in a WTA 1000 final. But I think it's going to be Kvitova. I've just got a feeling about her. Has she dropped a set yet? She has not. She's not dropped a set yet. Fairly decent opponents in Vekic, Noskova, the up-and-coming Czech. She's playing great tennis. And obviously she made a WTA 1000 final last year, right? In Canada, Cincinnati, one or the other. And yeah, she's got a chance. Kvitova's always got a chance if she gets this deep in a tournament, John. So that's my other story, I think.
But Rybakina's favourite, right? Overall.
Rybakina's favourite, yeah. In fact, I put Rybakina favourite over Pegula, not by a fair margin, maybe about 60-40, I think. But I think the way she's returning, in fact, maybe more than that, actually, John. The way she's serving and returning, these courts reward first-strike tennis. Rybakina has got that on lock at the moment, particularly in her match against Sablenka. Pegula's serve obviously is weaker than Sabalenka's, so I think it should be not fairly one-sided, but I'm going to say 4-4 or something like that.
I went into this tournament regarding Pegula, actually, in that I had her in my semis. Listen, I've got lots of things wrong, so it's not a time for me to boast of. I had Sablenka winning the tournament, for example, who obviously lost today. But I had Pegula in the semis, but it was just like she wasn't one of my 4 contenders for the tournament. It was just, her 4th round opponent is not Krejcikova. Her quarterfinal opponent isn't Sabalenka, Rybakina, or as at the time it was Swiatek. I did it, about 24 hours before she pulled out. So it was like, her draw at least. I'm not thinking that she's one of the 4 most likely people to win this tournament, but I've got her in my semis because her draw opened up a little bit. So, hey, listen, she may take advantage of that, but
she had a cushy round of 16, a cushy 16th of the draw for sure. I'm just looking at it now, John. Players like Collins out of form, Lynette, Australian Open one-hit wonder. I think we'll be proving that or not proving that as the year goes on, but that's the feeling, obviously. And then Azarenka as well, who's beatable on her day. They're the main threats there. And then you've got, obviously, she came through Potapova even by the skin of her teeth, saving match points there. That was always going to be the challenge in the quarters. So she's done really well to get to the semis.
Absolutely. I mean, I had her against Coco Gauff, I think, in the quarters, and I still thought, well, that's a kind draw, but Coco didn't make it to the quarters. So, she had to save match points against Potapova. And she's in the semis, which is great. And then, that's where, but by the way, draws can also help. You can suddenly, just win your semi and you got almost one hand on the trophy, if you like. So, but yeah, I do think there were tougher assignments for her. So I think that skewed things a bit. Any other things? Go on.
I was just going to flesh out the Potapova stat there. That's the 7th time on the tour that Pegula's won after saving match points, and it's the 2nd time she's done it this year. So it makes her the only player this year to win multiple matches after saving match points. So she
Who was
also,
the other match against? Do you know this year?
yeah, also beat Ostapenko in Doha.
I don't know why that made me laugh.
The Ostapenko's loss, oh my God, I don't know if you saw that, to Trevisan, 3-3 in a hardcore. I mean, she has some depths, honestly. She is a mental player.
Yeah.
I think Trevisan had won one of her last 18 hardcore matches before this tournament, so that kind of loss is just like unforgivable. I mean, come on, Ostapenko.
Yeah.
I'm back. There we go.
Yeah, you are back. I'm just messing around with. There's a bit of a new thing that StreamYard have, and I'm just getting used to it. So just trying to work out how to play this. Here we go. This is the screen I wanted. Yeah. So yeah, Ostapenko, you just don't know what you get. I mean, she can make a French Open final at 1 minute and then just disappear. But Trevisan is a bit like. I mean, she made a semi-finals at the French Open last year. I'm sure the draw probably helped, but
she's a good clay courter, definitely. But she's not.
Yeah.
She's not a hard quarter by any means, so that is not a good loss. Definitely, by on all accounts, that's a bad loss. So Ostapenko's...
But both players, maybe to a less extent, Trevisan, both players are kind of so random. But random normally means not consistent, and therefore you can't win 7 matches in a row. But sometimes with these random players, that also means they can win 7 matches in a row, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, they're like polar opposites, I guess. Trevisan won't miss a ball and Ostapenko will miss every ball. And sometimes that works for Trevisan when you catch players like that on a bad day. She also beat... Well, actually, she didn't really beat anybody else of note. I'm saying that her draw opened up because Swiatek went out, right? So that's why we actually saw her in the 4th round in the first place. So just had to come through Ostapenko. All I'm saying is Trevisan is not going to be the hardcourt threat we're making her out to be for years to come. That's all.
All right, let's switch to ATP.
Okay.
And this tournament so far. Hi, Ghosty. Nice to have you back. I mean, listen, I like Trevisan. I think she's a character. I think maybe she gets some dislike from certain quarters. Maybe she divides opinion, but I don't know. I find her very amenable. On the ATP side, Jack, I went into this tournament. I predicted, not exactly an ambitious prediction, I would suggest, but I predicted that Alcaraz would win the tournament. I think it was slightly more ambitious in terms of Indian Wells because less people were predicting him because of his health. But having seen what happened in Indian Wells, people were like, well, I guess he could well do the Sunshine Double. But I did think that he would have more difficulty. I actually predicted Carlos was less. I know we've seen some amazing stuff from him in the last 3 rounds already, maybe particularly winning in straight sets against Tommy Paul. But and you've seen tweets and just everyone's just drooling over him from all corners of the sporting world. But I did think that he would have more trouble. But from now on, from today, i.e. Taylor Fritz today, i.e. potentially Medvedev in the final, and I know they play each other in Indian Wells, but I went for a slightly rockier road to victory for him than Indian Wells, where he didn't drop a set. Because I think the conditions, for example, Medvedev and Taylor Fritz as well, are they not sort of more players that kind of like speedier conditions? We're not quite the Roland Garros Wimbledon double, if you like, in terms of the difference in conditions. I mean, when Bjorn Borg does that 5 times in his career, and of course Rafa ends up doing it in 2008, and Novak did it, I think, in 2021. We're going, wow, boom, boom, boom. But we are talking about 2 very different tournaments in Indian Wells, and that's one of the reasons why we call it the Sunshine Double. I think it's part of the reasons why tennis purists go big on it. It's not just the fact we've got 2 Masters 1000s, so it's like they're 2 different tournaments in so many ways. Rafa could never master Miami, and there were some twists and turns there in terms of 5 sets. He was up 2 sets, for example, against Roger one year. But back to my point. Medi and Taylor maybe have a slight better chance against Carlos here than they would in Indian Wells.
Two things I'd say on that, John. One thing is Carlos Alcaraz is surprising me every week with his ability to vary his game, ability to come out with different game patterns and execute to the highest level, ability to adapt to conditions. So all of that stuff, he can come out and play a different game than he would play in Indian Wells, where he was playing a lot more solid in Indian Wells. He played that match against Medvedev where he basically matched him toe for toe from the baseline in the long rallies. You would never have expected that before the match. And then coming into this tournament, he's serving at his skin. He's playing first strike tennis. He can do what he likes. He is the craziest player we've seen in years, John. So obviously, we don't want to get too hyped up. It could all go to pot in a year and something else could happen. Who knows? Point is, though, the hype for now is very, very deserved. And chances are he should beat these two players even in these conditions. I don't think it matters too much the difference in conditioning, because Alcaraz will come up with a different game plan. Saying that, it's a lot more even. You're 100% right, John, because as soon as the conditions get faster, particularly Taylor Fritz, whose serve goes underrated sometimes, he will get 3 points on the surface against Alcaraz. He will have a good chance. Even if Alcaraz is winning 70% of the baseline rallies, Taylor Fritz can keep himself alive. That's basically what happened in Indian Wells against Sinner. It was a close match. It was 6-4 in the third, but Fritz was getting pretty pummeled from the back of the court. It didn't matter, though. I think he got broken twice throughout the whole match. Could happen again with Alcaraz. You really don't know. With a player like Taylor Fritz, who gets underrated a lot, there's a chance he beats him just on the serve alone. He did that against Holger Rune in the previous round. Who knows? It'll be close, obviously, if he does beat him the way Alcaraz is playing. But he's got a chance. And Medvedev has got a much bigger chance than Indian Wells. He loves the surface.
The other thing with Indian Wells was I saw him have a relatively soft, easy-ish couple of rounds. So if the hip was an issue, he had a chance to brush that off. And that's why I had the confidence there. Yeah. Here in Miami, though, I think his run, if he is to win the title, Tommy Paul in the fourth round, Taylor Fritz in the quarter. You're playing players that you would expect to meet at that round, if you like, or maybe even slightly tougher. You could have a slightly softer fourth round for sure.
The first two rounds were quite soft, I guess. That's
yeah.
fair. Yeah.
Yeah.
Eases him into the tournament, right? You play Bagnes, who's not going to win a match on a hard court, against Alcaraz, and Lajovic as well. Same argument, to be honest. It was 6-love, 7-6. And actually, the match got a little bit scrappy at the end. Paul was a very good challenge for the round of 16. At the same time, his serve's nothing like Taylor Fritz's or Daniil Medvedev's. So if you're going to play on a fast surface, you got to have that weapon to have any chance against Alcaraz at the moment. There's just no way. If you don't have a big serve, you're probably unlikely to win the match. Sinner in Indian Wells, he was very close to beating Alcaraz. If he'd been serving just a little bit better, he could have won that match. And that's why I think Sinner is the biggest threat for him in the semis. Because he put 50% of his first serves in the court. You're not going to beat Alcaraz putting 50% of your first serves in the court.
Did I underplay that match then? Because I was just saying just before you came on air that the Sinner Alcaraz match didn't quite hit the heights of, and I'm not even talking about US Open here. They had some epic. I think the Wimbledon match was epic. It was just 4 sets.
Yeah,
I know.
Yeah, it was.
But I thought it was amazing, and they had some other battles last year that were great. I remember one or two.
Umag as well.
Where?
Umag in Croatia.
Oh yeah. That's on the clay, right? And that's
after.
Is that the one after Wimbledon on the clay?
Yeah, it was a weird one. It was a really close first set, and then it was 2 breadsticks to Sinner. Exactly. So that's strange.
But I didn't quite feel Indian Wells lived up to those heights. Is that fair?
It was a different game style. As I say, Alcaraz came in with a different game style. He played a lot more patient than we saw in the US Open, for example. Whether that was conditions or whether that was a game plan he'll take into the semis this week as well is, we'll wait to see. My gut feeling is it might have been his game plan from the start, and he might do the same thing. If he slow balls Sinner a little bit, who knows, and then goes for the killer shot. What we want to see is US Open, where they were firing forehands cross-court at each other and, delivering 100-mile-an-hour forehands back to the other side of the opponent, the other side of the net, even at 110 miles an hour. That's what I want to see. And it's more likely to happen here, John, on a fast court like Miami faster court like Miami than Indian Wells.
Before we both head off into our own sunshine doubles, mine might be a double drink. As you may have noticed, I'm on the beer this evening. It's a very good Spanish beer. Hasta Regalite, exactly. which I mean, globally, I think it really became well known after. I don't know if you've seen The Money Heist or La Casa de Papel in Spanish.
Yeah, I have actually.
I mean, they're just drinking that throughout. Every time they have there must be a deal going on there. But listen, I'm going off at a tangent. I want to address a couple of things from Ghosty in the live chat, because it's actually one of them is something I talk about all the time and I feel very passionately about. And it's this question or this point. It seems like Miami, isn't drawing the fans like Indian Wells, so maybe let's cut Miami. I do want to see less tennis. I think you maybe feel a bit differently. I remember speaking to you in the autumn or the fall about this, and you were loving the action coming thick and fast. And I don't necessarily have a problem with that. I just think over the course of the year, I'd like to see one or two go. What I would disagree, though, with Ghosty is that probably Miami wouldn't be the one. I just think we'd appreciate the Sunshine Double even more if we lost Cincinnati, if we lost Madrid. I'm not saying that either of these things are anything close to happening. I'm not predicting their fall because I think there's too many other vested interests involved, but maybe we'd go back to appreciating it a bit more. Maybe we don't go to China, for example. I know it's kind of off the menu, or it has been for a couple of years, but and not from the ethical point of view, just because of the pandemic, certainly in terms of the ATP. But let's do that for another day. I just would like to see a bit less tennis, and then we'd probably have an even bigger thirst for this Sunshine Double.
Yeah, I'm probably in the opposite camp. I don't want to see more tennis. I'm fine with the amount that's on, but I don't mind it. I think you could probably stack up a few more of the events so that there's a longer off season. I definitely agree with that. Or get rid of an event just to get a longer off season. Certainly, that's the only thing I think. But yeah, I love Cincinnati. I love Montreal, Toronto. There's a bit of a difference there. I love the free clay courts. They're all a bit different too. You just need a bit of variety throughout the events, and I actually think we get that. I'm quite happy with all the Masters as they are. Definitely. Maybe we could cut a few 250s, a few 500s, but apart from that, I'm fine with it as it is, John. Definitely.
Jack and I will have a debate either off air, or maybe even we'll do a pod on this alone. We're not a million miles apart, Jack, but we're probably slightly apart. Let's say that. But we'll go into a deeper dive on that another time. I just want to wrap things up before I do. Just any other things on the ATP side that I've missed in terms of this tournament? By the way, you mentioned Lajovic being an easier introduction for Carlos. I think I remember him being a fairly notable player in the first round. A guy who's won a few slams himself.
Lajovic.
Yeah, in the first round in Miami, I think he had a good.
Oh right, oh yeah. I literally it doesn't take long for me to just erase that from my memory.
Yeah,
honestly.
right. The penny didn't drop, really, did it?
Christ, no! I purposely erased that from my memory. That was the worst match he's played since 2017. I'm not even exaggerating. That's too much. The last 2 years, I think that was the worst match he's played.
I loved the tweet from Scott. It was just funny, but also on the button, or on the whatever it is. You know, the one immediately after he lost to Lajovic, he said, he just basically said, listen, I love, and I'm just going to try and guess what it said rather than find it. I love some of the positivity that we've all taken from Andy's victories, but also even some of his defeats this year. But this one today is just completely shite.
Yeah, it was. I think he said, I think we can all agree that was
exactly,
was total shite.
Which I just that's it. Even Andy at the net, Andy Murray at the net. I even saw the. I maybe I was reading too much into it, but it was an exchange of there's matches you can win, you can lose. The dramatic ones, you lose to RBA. I think it was in the fourth round. Was it fourth round or third round in Australia? Third round. These things happen 4 sets. It's tough, and RBA is a really tough opponent. I just felt as though when he was approaching the net, but as I say, this could be me thinking this. He's thinking, even with a medal hip, I shouldn't be losing in that manner today.
Yeah. I don't. Yeah, leave it at that. Honestly, I really don't want to. I don't want to dwell on that at all. I've got a few other things I could talk about besides.
Yeah, sure. Go.
Awful match. I'm just looking through it there. We didn't really touch on how easy-ish Medvedev's draw was. Gosti's right, with that walkover against Molchan, and then Karbayev-Bena is not a good matchup against Medvedev, so that's very, very easy too. And then Quentin Halys, to be fair, that's a tough match, and I wanted to talk about Halys. I did a little tweet on him. You got to look at his serving stats. Apart from against Medvedev, who's always going to put somebody's first serve percentage down by about 15% or so, he has got one of the best first serves in the game, undoubtedly, and he's actually won the most first serve points this year in terms of percentage out of anybody. Which, that you put that into context, John Isner and stuff, he's hitting he's winning more first serve points than John Isner. That's insane. He's got a very, very good serve. So going into Wimbledon, he's going to be a little bit of a wild card if he can play well. Because he moves well. For a big guy, and he's not massive to be fair, he's 6'3" compared to your 6'6"ers, your 6'10s. He's not huge. So he'll move quite well around the court, and he's got that touch all the French players do. He could be really, really dangerous at Wimbledon. But that's a while away. But
how long ago was this tweet? In the last 24 hours, was it?
Probably about 48 hours, I think, maybe.
I'm scrolling through your timeline. right now. But anyway, still some good stuff. I'm just looking at one right now. I mean, I'm not showing it on the screen yet, but Steph talks some shite, man. It's funny.
He does,
Do you think it was before that the Alex one?
I think it was before that. Yeah, I'm pretty sure. I've done quite a few tweets the last couple of days.
I mean, I'm doing all the tweets. 27th of March, I'm on that. So that's 2 days ago. Tommy Paul, Rajiv Ram. I'm just trying to see if I could share. Yeah, by the way, okay, listen. I can see you've retweeted pretty much the same thing. Oh, no, you retweeted something about Alcaraz, which actually, when you were talking about Alcaraz earlier, was interesting. I'm just looking at your retweets. Maybe I can just share this screen. There we go. Let's do this. Am I sharing it yet? Let's see. Here we go. There we go. So just a great tweet. There's been a couple from Gilgos of late, actually, regarding, first of all, there was one about Stefanos Tsitsipas I saw a day or so ago, and all that furore regarding the shoulder injury and the pressure to play. Maybe we can just do that as well before we finish. But there was the other one, which is on the screen right now, which made me think about it when you were talking about Alcaraz and the aggression and the solidity, if you like, of his performance in Indian Wells, is that it's just really, really cool to hear that Carlos is saying, yeah, I am thinking about this. I mean, even the drop shot comment he made on the tennis podcast, at least they highlighted a couple of weeks ago, where he's going, somebody asked him finally, what is it about you and the drop shot? How does that happen? He says, because I got a really good forehand.
Yeah. And the way he was talking about it, though, it's not a proactive tactic. It's a reactive tactic. So what I mean by that, he goes for the forehand. He sees the slightest movement backwards. Yeah. And it's like grip change, drop shot, wins the point, all in the space of about half a second. The tennis IQ and the tennis awareness, it's just insane. It's literally insane. So, I mean, he's not just like coincidentally that good. He's doing all that in his head. He's chess playing. He's insane. Like, he deserves all the hype.
I was thinking about this. I was thinking about you. I was thinking about all of these things. I was out jogging today, and if anyone here, man, or not, I like jogging and running and have done for a long time, but the mind can go in some very weird and wonderful places. I also wondered if I ever door stopped and just randomly stopped a Vidit Fokina, what would I ask him? And I even would go through these thoughts, and I came up with an answer, and I think I shared it earlier, so I won't repeat it. But regarding this thing, I was actually thinking about the drop shot and some of the things that you've said in recent days or weeks about Alcaraz and his tennis IQ. And it was just like I was also trying to bring it to the average amateur player like myself. And there's two things when it comes to an amateur player, and of course you coach yourself. Is there's two issues. One is that the execution is really, 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 really difficult to get it right. The second thing, and possibly even as significant compared to the amateurs, is that no one is hitting that big, really, amongst amateurs. We've all got our strengths and our weaknesses, and maybe some really good amateurs can compare certain things, but no one is serving anything like Zverev, for example, or even to some extent Djokovic. No one is but the thing is, and as a result, no one is standing as far back as Medvedev. Or even, I've never played a match, and because I'm not that big, I guess, in the way I play, but I've seen loads of really good amateurs playing, players that are doing shots that I could only dream of. But I never see anyone as far back as Medvedev or Rafa in Roland Garros. Rafa is so far back in Paris, he's almost in Marseille. I never, and because no one's, so therefore that also then negates the even if you've got the best drop shot in the world, but some of the guys can run pretty fast that I'm playing with. Some of us super quick. So therefore the drop shot is almost negated as a result. Does that make sense?
No, you're totally right. I was about to say, so there's a lot of stuff I translate from analysis that I do online to my actual coaching, and I'll be like, these are translatable tactics, particularly doubles, which I teach quite a lot, and the way that professional doubles players play. A lot of the time, a lot of those tips are completely and utterly translatable to normal tennis, like to amateur tennis. And it's the same in singles, but there's some tactics that aren't as translatable. Nobody, you're right, has got as big a forehand. And generally the speed of players isn't far off amateur to professional, you get some really quick guys, at your local clubs. Obviously, they won't be quite as quick, but people get to drop shots quite easily when the balls are new. So drop shots generally are a very secondary tactic for me. Alcaraz uses them as part of his primary game. Drop shots generally, I think, leave them. There's a time and a place. You should just go for nice, repeatable, easy 9 times out of 10 tactics at amateur level for me.
I've had a comment about sharing your Twitter, for example, and K-pop and all the rest of it. So I think it's just about the right time to share this one.
Oh, I like that photo, to be fair.
No, it's a good photo.
Yeah,
and this there's a link to the U2 with this, right?
Yes, there is. Yeah. We were listening to Joshua Tree actually when we were driving around. We're quite enjoying it. I know quite a lot about K-pop. Not because I like it, Ghost, but because my sister listens to it a lot. So unfortunately, just by proxy, just by being near it a lot of the time, unfortunately, I'm burdened with that Ghosty for the rest of my life.
A spontaneous chat broke out between Damien and Nick about an hour or so ago about entry music. If you had a sort of boxing or darts style entrance, and I'm glad that Ghosty's here for this moment because he wasn't here during the chat earlier, but we were talking about what if players could have an entrance? And I think I was in the live chat at the time, and I think I said something about Eye of the Tiger. But then Nick was quite funny, and he was like, well, what about, let's specify it to a player. Like what songs would suit certain players? And Ghosty, I really hope you appreciate this one. I had this idea a week ago, not exactly the idea, but I did a thumbnail for an episode we had about a week ago. I think it was about Miami, and I wasn't quite sure to who to have the third player in the thumbnail. I think Alcaraz was there, and it was ATP, I think, rather than both. Anyway, whatever. The third player I was struggling for, I think Medvedev was one. And I was like, who should I have a third one? And I thought, I'll have Holger Rune over there as my third image, if you like. And then it just came to me. And I was like, I put it there, and I'm sure almost no one got it, but I put bad. So it was like each player had like a question, or, can Alcaraz do the Sunshine Double? Can Medvedev get revenge, if you like, on Alcaraz? And the third one was Holger Rune. And I thought, I don't really know what the storyline is here. And then I just came to me, and I was like, Bad Rune Rising. And it was based on, I had, I see a bad moon rising, a song and I was like, I like this. And then when these guys are talking today about what song would you have to enter, I got in the, bring me in. I was like, bring me in, coach, because I want to get involved in the episode. I was like, you got to do Bad Rune Rising. And
it's a bit too low key, isn't it? You need something a bit more evil for Rune. I think he's turning into the tour villain nowadays, doesn't he? They actually had walk-on songs for the Davis Cup players back in the day. So you had Andy Murray walking on to See a Chandelier. That's like my go-to song for Andy nowadays. Like that just makes me think of the Davis Cup. So they did have it when they did international competitions. I wish they had it for team competitions. I wish they had it for singles as well.
And a tweet from you today. I saw you were very pumped for the Manchester potential, or not potential, but definite but Davis Cup news.
Yes, absolutely. I think I might try and turn that into more of a leisure one than a business one, actually. I love Manchester. It's great crack. So I'm keen. So
before I know I keep saying it, but this really is the end. But you and I, in very different manners, I believe, are going to be attending, but let's say very different manners next week. Look at me, too many of these Australia lists, I think. I'm going to Estoril, and if I understand correctly, you have a virtual press pass, which is really cool. Yeah. I'm looking forward to that. So you maybe if you hear Jack's or my voice, certainly less beer affected, I hope, next week during the press conferences, one way or another. I'm pumped.
It'll be good. I'm jealous. Obviously, I'm jealous. Like, I would be keen to just take a week off, but I can't do it, unfortunately. But yeah. I'm still doing the virtual press pass. I'm quite looking forward to that. And
I didn't know they were still doing those, but they are. So that's an option, I guess.
Yeah, the last couple of tournaments I've got a press pass for, they just chuck you in the virtual media centre automatically. So it happens everywhere, generally. I think it's an option. So trying for the French now, John, fingers crossed.
Yeah, me too. I mean, Listen, let's see how that pans. If they watch this episode of me singing whilst drinking Astorega Galicis, maybe they'll have second thoughts. But anyway, listen, that's for another day. Jack, I just want to say a big thanks for coming along and just seeing us through the last half an hour, and I'm sure we'll be crossing paths again soon. By the way, I know, Jack, you're going to have a couple of episodes this coming weekend. Just tell us very quickly before we say goodbye about those.
Yeah, a couple of episodes one on the women's final, one on the men's final. Might touch on one of the biggest stories throughout the weeks in both episodes as well. Just little 20-minute episodes nowadays, quite bite-sized. At the moment, unconfirmed guests actually. So, but we'll obviously get somebody great on. I think one of them is rumored to maybe be making an appearance, depending on their flight. They're obviously a jet setter; they like to travel. So,
well, listen, I'm fine with shares. I said, Jack, if you get short, well, I'm sure I can give you 20 minutes on one or both finals. But I will be going between Mallorca and Porto over the weekend. So, yeah, and obviously I'll be in Estoril next week for those fun things happening there. And, of course, Davidovich Fokina is there, which is why I started having these imaginary... It's like, what if I just had a... And my question for Davidovich Fokina would be, do you realise how popular you are amongst tennis hipsters?
Yeah, it's a good idea. Yeah,
that was one I had in my head.
I'm a stan now after Indian Wells. I love him.
Yeah, I know.
I love him.
And maybe that's why I started thinking of you. And then I started thinking about the drop shot, and because it was like, I remember you saying, yeah, you were a convert.
Yeah, absolutely. Watching him live is life-changing. I didn't know people could hit the ball like that. It's insane. So yeah, absolutely loved it. Please
on
ask
that bombshell, we'll close us out with a promo thing if I can find it. Here we go. They've done all the different things with StreamYard since I last signed in, which was about a week ago, I think. So I'm going to say thanks to you, Jack, for stopping by.
No worries. Really enjoyed it, John. Thanks for having me.
And everyone else who's joined in as well, thank you to you. Make sure you hit the like button. Don't forget to subscribe. I'm just going to repeat it in this pre-recorded video anyway. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you hit that like button. Don't forget to subscribe and click that notification bell so you don't miss out on all things tennis.